I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do things completely differently to Starmer, then people would say, hold on, mate, we need a general election in that case, because no one voted for that. No one voted for you to be Prime Minister. You weren't standing in the 2024 general election. We've never seen your manifesto. Who the hell are you? That's what people would be asking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Wednesday morning, I'm Duncan Barkes. It's the home of common sense. It's Talk. I'm here through until 1 o'clock this afternoon in for the legendary Julia Hartley-Brewer. Listen, thank you for sticking us on this morning. If you are watching on YouTube, good to have you along. If you're listening on DAB+, digital radio or on your smart speaker, really good to have you here. Alongside me through until 1 o'clock this afternoon is Conservative commentator Benedict Spence. We'll get to Benedict in a few moments' time. But listen, this is the number you need this morning, 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes and your WhatsApp messages, because there is a war that is currently being waged at the moment. There's a war against motorists and there's a war against pensioners. And I'll tell you why I think that in a few moments' time. But this also gets us into this whole thing that here we are once again with another example of two-tier Britain. All right, those of us who dare to drive a car, right, you know, we get punished for it and penalised, particularly if you're unfortunate enough to end up in Birmingham. If you're a pensioner and you've worked all of your life, we have all of this narrative that's in the newspapers at the moment about the idea that the triple lock on your pension is unsustainable, and also this idea that as a pensioner you should be taxed. Your initial reaction to this, 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes and your WhatsApp messages. If you're a little bit old school, you can text. The number is 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Let's talk about driving for a second. If you're listening to me at the moment and you drive for a living, I want you to get in contact and tell me, where's the worst place to drive in the United Kingdom in terms of where you think you are literally a cash cow? You are fleeced just because you're behind the steering wheel. I'll tell you why I want to have this conversation, because we're reading this morning that Birmingham is aiming to become England's first 20-mile-per-hour city by lowering speed limits on most of its roads. Now, depending on where you're listening this morning, you might be thinking, well, hang on a second, there are 20-mile-per-hour limits where I am. Yes, in London, in the capital, there are various boroughs who have decided to implement the 20-mile-per-hour limit. I believe I'm right in saying that's a choice of the individual boroughs. If you're listening in Wales, you will know Labour's Welsh government implemented this 20-mile-per-hour thing a number of years ago, but now they diluted it because, guess what, there's been a backlash from people in Wales going, this is just ludicrous. In Bristol, Bristol. Lots of 20-mile-per-hour limits. This appears to be the first time that we have a local authority that's dedicated to lowering speed limits on most of its roads, 20-mile-per-hour limits. The council has announced that it is pushing for all routes classified below A roads to become 20-mile-per-hour zones. What else do you need to know? Oh, what a surprise. Guess the political makeup of this particular council. Go and have a go. It's a rainbow coalition, to use a phrase, made up of Lib Dems, Greens and independents. Well, let's be honest, most independents aren't really independent. They're always left-wing, in my view. It always seems to be these lefty councils that want to try and implement this 20-mile-per-hour zone right across various parts of their towns or cities. You call me this morning here on Talk and tell me where's the worst place to drive in the United Kingdom. And if you're someone who genuinely believes that 20-mile-per-hour zones are a good thing, let's have that conversation. I'm really pragmatic about this, and I think most people are. You just go, OK, 20-mile-per-hour zones, maybe outside schools, when the schools are there, you know, in the morning and afternoon, when kids are arriving and leaving, that's probably a good thing. Maybe near parks and that kind of stuff. But having a 20-mile-per-hour limit that's in operation at 2:30 in the morning in a city somewhere when there's hardly anything on the road, quite frankly, it's just a waste of everyone's time. And I can't help but think it's really, really simple. They just want your money. And look, I don't want to be too London-centric about this, but I live in the wilds of West Sussex and I drive to London at various hours because public transport doesn't operate at that time, right? I can't get a train to London at 4 o'clock in the morning and they don't run. So I drive. And you use these roads and you have these speed cameras, these 20-mile-per-hour limits. There is nothing on the roads. And you can't help but think it's just a way of local authorities getting more cash. Am I right? 0344 499 1000. So let's talk about the possibility of Brum, the once great city of Birmingham, having blanket 20-mile-per-hour limits. And something else I want to talk about this morning. And if you're someone who's listening to me and you're retired, you class yourself as a pensioner, then I think it's fair to say you are in the crosshairs of this Labour government for a couple of reasons. Andy Burnham, our new Prime Minister, you know, the one that doesn't really have a mandate, should raise taxes on wealthy pensioners to rescue the public's finances. Now, who's saying this? It's Labour's favourite think tank called the Institute for Public Policy Research. They're calling on the PM to introduce national insurance on pensioners' incomes to shield workers from further levies. Economists say in a new report that the policy, along with higher taxes on property wealth, was essential to combat growing financial pressures caused by an ageing population. That's one thing that's circulating this morning. The other thing that's circulating, and it often does, is what we call the pensions triple lock that was introduced in 2010 by David Cameron when he was Prime Minister in the Tory Lib Dem coalition. Seems like such a long time ago, don't you think? And it's this idea that what happens with the pension, it's pegged to various markers, including inflation and wage growth, to make sure the pension is still worth what it is or what it would be in the future. There's calls today that we have this ticking time bomb, as some people describe it. We have more people getting older, living for longer, and the triple lock on pensions is unsustainable. That's what they're saying. How sustainable is the triple lock? And can I ask you this blunt question this morning here on Talk? Do you feel as a pensioner that you're being unfairly targeted by politicians in this country? Or dare I say it, Zoomers? What is a Zoomer? There's this narrative that's developing where we seem to have Zoomers versus Boomers. Boomers being baby boomers, Zoomers being these people in their 20s, possibly their 30s, who grew up using Zoom technology. I think that's the correct explanation. Boomers versus Zoomers. For the record, I'm not. I'm Generation X, and we're remarkably hard for all kinds of reasons. But you tell me, if you're a pensioner, you're listening and you're watching Talk at the moment, do you feel somehow battered by this idea? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's bring in Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. Morning.
Good morning.
What are you? Are you a Gen Zer? No, you're a millennial.
I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial, right. So this pension stuff, what do you make of it? Is the triple lock unsustainable?
It is unsustainable.
It is unsustainable.
And people of this station will know what my views are on the
Yeah, you've got a bit of form on this, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. And this is because the numbers don't add up. Yeah. We have to remember here, when we talk about the triple lock, a lot of people seem to regard it as some sort of golden cow, but it's only 15 years old, and it's already caused untold economic damage. Pensions are almost half of the UK's welfare bill. So whenever you hear people talking about welfare spending and, you know, people being feckless and work shy and how much it's ballooning. Actually, almost half of it is down to pensions. Now, you have to juxtapose this. No, I need to finish my sentence first. I have not even finished my first sentence. You've had a whole... Come on, Julia. Come on, Julia, let me talk.
I know,
I need to finish this. You have to think
because our
about...
listeners, Benedict, our listeners will say, we need to look after our pensioners.
Pensioners, I'm sorry, this is Thatcher's generation. This was the generation of people who were supposed to look after themselves, and we're talking about the state giving them handouts.
Who have contributed all their life.
Not enough.
Not enough what?
Not enough. They haven't contributed
So why
enough money.
punish them?
Because they haven't paid enough.
Why do you want to punish pensioners?
They haven't paid enough.
Well, that's not their fault.
This is the key thing here, right? We're thinking here about what the role is of the state in society in general. Now, I would pose you a question. Who is more vulnerable, a pensioner or a child?
We shouldn't have to make that choice.
But that is the choice.
No.
So, what is the education?
What
is the education budget in this country? What is the education budget?
Not the choice.
What is the education budget of this country?
I don't know off the top of my head.
66 million. How much is the pension budget?
Go on.
The state pension.
146. But you're putting up a straw man argument.
It's not a straw man argument because all of this ties. No. You need to let me finish my sentence. At some point, all of this ties in to what the function of a state is, and that is to uphold a society that is cohesive.
Yes.
If you decide to put too much emphasis on one aspect of society, and we put far more money into propping up pensioners than we do into anybody else, and I take the argument that they'll say that they've worked their whole life, that's fine, but if you have that kind of imbalance, that causes problems down the line, because somebody else has to pay for this, because these people have not paid in enough. Now, they may say, justify me so, no, there's a really long sentence I'm really good at, and they will say that they were not told about this, that they were misled. You can ask me a question when I finish this. They will say that they paid in, but the point is about the triple lock is that it is pegged to whatever is highest. What is that? Inflation, average earnings, or 2.5%. What is happening with inflation in the world right now? It is massively outstripping economic growth. This was not foreseen in 2010 when it was brought in, but it is a fact of life now, and we have to adapt to that.
Have you finished?
No, I've not, but I'm going to let you speak.
Well, that's very kind of you. Very benevolent of you as well, here on Talk at 12 minutes past 10 on this Wednesday morning. The question I wanted to ask, and you went on for so long, I've almost forgotten it, but I think I've got it back, which is this. Why do you think we have to make a choice between children in this country and pensioners? Why not do both?
I would love it if we did both, but we don't. We don't, and the numbers are pretty stark.
But why?
Why
not find a way of making it work?
Because one group can vote and the other one can't, and that, I'm afraid, is where the responsibility comes in. Actually, pensioners who can vote have a responsibility to redistribute spending towards those who cannot, and that is children. And why they should do that is because those children are the ones who will eventually enter the workforce and pay for their services. That is why they should be doing it. But for as long as we don't have that
that's what I'm doing for today's pensioners.
It is what you're doing for today's pensioners, but I'm talking about what's coming down the line. And that is that the sheer amount of money that we're spending on, not just on pensions, healthcare and everything else, is growing at such a rate that it is outstripping the wealth creation.
Do you know what annoys me about this whole debate, Benedict, is, and I'm not putting you in this bracket, but we have a million 16 to 24-year-olds, these NEETs, not in education, employment or training, that I'm bloody paying for, right? I'm paying for them.
Me too.
All right? So this idea that, generations coming through, it's really unfair that there's a triple lock on pensions, all right? I'm doing my bit to support future generations, as are you, and I suspect a great deal of our listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
So, the idea that you somehow punish pensioners later in life is just not on.
Well, why is it that so many of those people are on out-of-work benefits? For a start, what was actually the moment that ushered in? What was the moment that ushered in that particular time? Because you remember, actually, one of the key things about all of these people who are on out-of-work benefits, but what is the actual key thing that they get as part of this? It's mental health. What was the thing that precipitated that massive mental health crisis? It was the pandemic.
Agreed.
Why did we have to shut down society? Who were we trying to protect?
Yeah. I agree with all of that, but this is not a debate about the pandemic,
but this is it all ties in. It is holistic. It is holistic. Society is holistic. And this is the next thing we have to remember. And this is where a lot of pensioners will no doubt call this show and say, what about all the migrants that we're paying for? Now, the issue with that is, it's not the migrants that we are paying through on welfare, who actually are not that big a part of the constituency. It's the ones who are here working the jobs that once upon a time those young people would have been taking. You go to a supermarket in this country now, once upon a time it would have been staffed by 16-year-olds and actually also people on the cusp of pensionable age or who just wanted to get out of the house. Now it is staffed almost entirely by people who have come from overseas, who are working for not very much money, but it's more than what they get in their home countries. That is the disconnect there. If you flood the country with low-skilled, low-paid migrant labour, you force young people out of the workplace. That won't be resolved until that process is reversed.
All right. I mean, you're very clear on your position here, and it's good to hear, it being articulated remarkably clearly, and I don't mean that in a patronising way, because you fought your corner really well. How do you say to our listeners and viewers on Talk this morning who might be of pensionable age that they need to make a sacrifice? How would you persuade them?
Well, not all of them should. Actually, what we should be doing is basing this on people who have private pensions and a certain amount of private income, and actually we should be taking away the state pension from people who don't need it. And there are a lot of people who don't need it. There are a lot of people who have invested very sensibly and who actually did so on the basis that they thought that that would be their retirement. Those people do not need the however many £1,000 it is, sort of 10, 12,000 from the state pension. They don't need that at all.
So you means test it?
It is about a third of all pensioners fall into that bracket. That is actually money that could be going towards other pensions.
So just to be clear, you're suggesting we means test the public pension?
Frankly, at this stage, I don't see what the other outcome is. Now, there are some interesting ideas. The Tony Blair Institute for Change. Now, I know, obviously, Tony Blair sort of conjures up images of horror for most people, but his institute does come up with some interesting ideas. I mean, one of which is the idea that you'd replace the state pension with just a pot of money that you could take out the moment that you retire, and you could invest that or do whatever you want with it, buy a house, pass it on to your children. There are other interesting ways of looking at this. I'm not just sort of sat here saying, get rid of all pensions, get rid of the state pension, this and the other, but we do need a different way of doing it, because we do, I'm afraid, if the state, as it has decided to do, becomes this great behemoth that sucks in all this money, we need to be much better at allocating the money.
Can you understand why pensioners listening to what you're saying would find it disagreeable?
I understand entirely.
And
I understand entirely.
They would find themselves, I suspect, and we'll get some of them on the air shortly, just simply thinking, hang on, you know what, I've worked hard all my life, I've taken responsibility for my own life, I might have taken out a private pension as well, which is a responsible thing to do. I agree with you, there's not this magical pot that you pay into and get it when you retire, because it doesn't quite work like that. But you have done your bit for society. As I mentioned earlier, you know, you and I, working at the moment, are forking out in our taxation to fund all of these NEETs who, for whatever reason, can't work. It might be mental health issues, and there's an entire debate to be had about whether or not those mental health issues genuinely mean you can't put a shift in, but that's a separate conversation, all right? But this idea that, and I think it's the problem with this debate is it's so binary, isn't it? It's either have the triple lock, don't have the triple lock. There's no middle ground there. Where for you is the compromise? Is it simply that means testing?
I mean, I think if we're simply going to be starting off, that's a good place to start, and maybe we look at it later in terms of actually redressing the balance. But when, in terms of pensioners who will come out and say that they feel they're attacked, very hard done by, you simply need to look at the figures. So when they were buying their houses and they were investing, I mean, the house is a very important point here. It cost, what was it, on average 3 times the annual salary to buy a house. What is it now? It is 10 times, and that's getting bigger. So you can't turn around and say, well, I did my bit and to hell with everyone else, because your children and grandchildren will never, ever have that opportunity, no matter how responsible they are.
Do you know what? I'm really annoyed with you this morning, because you've lost me a listener.
Good.
Dave has just sent a message in saying, I'm switching off this radio station because you're allowing a living lefty spout his ideology. Have you ever been called a lefty, Benedict?
What is the state pension?
I don't know.
It's a benefit.
I don't take it. Oh, it's a benefit, yeah.
So everybody who's arguing in favour of it is arguing for £146 billion worth of benefits. Who's the lefty here? I'm saying pay your own way. It's all of these people who are saying, I deserve the benefits, if we're getting down that angle.
Pause for a second. We'll take some calls in a few moments' time. 0344 499 1000 is the number. It's almost 20 past 10. This is Talk.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, come on! Ready, full fast, go on! And they're on the way over to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just turned 20 past 10. It's Talk on a Wednesday morning. I'm Duncan Barkes in for Julia Hartley-Brewer. 0344 499 1000. Two key questions for you this morning. I do want to get some calls on the air about whether or not you as a motorist feel penalised off the back of this story that we're chewing over about Birmingham to become England's first 20-mile-per-hour city. But the thing that's dominating much of our chat so far this morning, and by the way, Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator alongside me here at Talk, is this war on pensioners. And maybe you think I'm framing that incorrectly, but when you hear this morning that we have the debate once again up and running about scrapping the triple lock, we also have a think tank, Labour's favourite think tank, saying that we should be taxing pensioners. I need to ask you, when we talk about the triple lock, how sustainable is it? 0344 499 1000 is the number. And maybe I'm living in a different world, all right? But I think, you know, this idea of kind of like Zoomer versus Boomer, it shouldn't be about that. We should be looking after tomorrow's generations and also the people who have worked all their lives. Carol is in Cornwall. Hello, Carol.
Well, good morning, Duncan. And as for Benedict, well, I'm not going to say good morning to you. You have brought steam coming out of my ears.
Well, let's try and let's have some civil discourse here, Carol, if we may. Say hello, say good morning to Benedict.
Well, I will say hello to Benedict.
I'm glad to have pressure washed your ears this morning.
I'm absolutely furious.
Yeah.
I have worked all my life and I've got a state pension, which is £12,700 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a lot of money.
Right.
My husband developed Parkinson's. We had to pay £7,000 a month from our savings for years for him to be looked after because I couldn't look after him towards the end. Things got so bad. And so we spent a lot of our savings. When my husband died, I'm entitled to a part of his private pension. So not only did he pay for the state pension, he paid for the private pension as well. Mm-hmm. And so what are they doing? They're taxing me. I get under £15,000 a year. That's not a lot of money when you've got to pay all the bills that are going up and up and up and up and up. And they're taxing me £59 a month from my husband's private pension. So I'm already being taxed. Thank you very much, Benedict. And I've worked hard all my life, as did my husband, from the age of 16. And we paid every penny we were asked to pay. If they didn't ask us to pay enough, that is not our fault.
I mean, just off that point, I'm sorry that a government has lied to you and that you're finding the ramifications of this down the road, but this happens to literally everybody. And you can ask that to young people. You can ask that to a generation of students who were told that they were going to get an interest-free loan and then, the rules were changed retrospectively, and now they find themselves in, they are all going to find themselves in hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of debt in order to get jobs that pay around about 3 times less per head than people when you were younger. But actually, if you're talking about getting the state pension £12,000, and that's kind of where you're at, and that your assets aren't that big, I'm not actually talking about taking that away from you. I'm not talking about...
Carol did mention about her husband's private pension that she gets part of now.
But this is the point. Yeah. You're supposed to pay into a private pension in order to prop yourself up in older age. But what I'm talking about here is taking away the state pension from people who with assets of over £1 million.
Yeah.
What is unfair about that? And this is the key thing here. Yeah. You will get... I already know what's going to happen.
Well, I already know what's going to happen here.
I'm just going to finish this.
Let's ask Carol
People
about
are going to call in today, and they're all going to be on that £12,000 state pension. There will be no millionaire pensioners calling in today. Why is it unfair to ask millionaires to give up that state pension?
That's the question I want to put to Carol. Carol, you've heard what Benedict said there, the idea that if you've got assets over £1 million, that's what you said, then you shouldn't get the state pension. How would that sit with you? No one's suggesting you have those assets, but is that not a fair compromise?
Well, it's going to take me some time to sort of process that, but I'm not sure. Though, I think if you've paid into a system, then you deserve to get the results that you were contracted to get. It's as simple as that. If you know, I mean, I think £1 million. Well, you know, no, I don't think that's right. I think if you pay into the state system and, OK, so they've changed their mind, it's now going to be too expensive, blah, 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 blah. But he's talking about younger people buying properties. When my husband and I first bought our first home, we absolutely just were scraping by. You know, I would buy a £56 bag of potatoes and some tuna fish, and we would live off that. I would make fish cakes and things like that. It was just incredible what we did in order to save and to be able to buy our home. And he said, yes, it was much cheaper then. Yes, but we didn't earn much.
No, I mean, it was a lot cheaper, but also the world was a very different place. Carol, I'm so glad you called up. Thank you. I'm only moving it on because we've got a stack of calls to get to. Dave is in Leeds. Dave, what is your wisdom this morning? Good morning.
Good morning to both of you. I concur with the lady who's just phoned in. I think it's incredible what Benedict's saying, to be quite honest with you.
Which bit don't you like?
We have one of the lowest pensions in the whole of Europe. That's a fact. That's an undeniable fact. The reason the triple lock was brought in was to raise the pensions for people who were struggling.
No, it wasn't. It was brought in. It was a political. It was a bung by a load of politicians, mate.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. It was brought in to level up pensions so people could have a bit more money in the pocket.
It was brought in for voters for David Cameron.
It was David Cameron wanting to ensure he got future older Tory voters. That's what that was about.
No, that's rubbish.
No, it's not rubbish.
That's absolute rubbish. I'm sorry, Benedict.
Well, that's why. Well, hear me out, Dave, because I'm not here to have an argument with you. But that is why the Conservative Party won't scrap the triple lock.
We were on a programme where arguments happen, and you created a massive argument this morning by your statements, by saying people don't really need the pensions.
Is that what I said?
$1 million.
I don't know who said that. Did you say that? No. I didn't say that.
And once again, I'm going to say, you're going to get a lot of people calling in today who haven't actually listened to what I've said. People, and I agree, actually, the state pension in the UK is very low. I'm not talking about taking it away from people who are just scrimping by on the state pension. I'm talking about taking it away from people with assets over $1 million.
I don't think anybody, Dominic, including millionaires, they've contributed. Right, it's just the same principle.
If you bought your house 40-odd years ago and you just sat on it, what have you contributed?
Dave, let me put a point to you, if I may, for a second, OK? Because I think this is really interesting. You've been good enough to call up. You believe that even millionaires should get the public pension, OK, the state pension. Yeah. Let me just put a point to you, and we can have an argument about it if you want, because, you know, I'm quite up for it, which is this. The record amount of debt we have in this country is, if you listen to the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, is nudging £3 trillion, OK? That's if you just take the OBR figures. If you look at stuff that's off the books, for example, liability for public sector pensions, PFI, private finance initiative, liabilities and stuff, that whacks it up even further. We have got a debt time bomb ticking away in this country, OK? Why are you resolute, given those figures, which are extraordinary, which if they carry on at the rate they are, we will be a bankrupt nation, OK? Why do you think it's still right for millionaires to get the state pension?
Because they've simply contributed like everybody else.
Right.
It's an overriding principle. I'm sorry, I know we're in a debt time bomb, but that's because of serious mismanagement by previous Conservative and Labour governments, dropping the country in the you-know-what from a great height, and they're still continuing to do it now. It's not the pensioners' fault. And can I just make this final point?
Yeah, go on.
Because I'm really annoyed about this.
Oh, understood.
What about the pensioners who contribute all their lives, like some people in my family, who don't make pension age and they die?
Yeah.
But they've made lifelong contributions to the pension scheme.
I think that's a fair point.
What happened to all that money, Dominic?
Right, it doesn't get paid to them. I'm really sorry, but you can't then turn around and say, well, in the abstract, maybe they would have lived to 104 because that's the trend. You can't just hand out that money to people.
Benedict, I don't know what you're on this morning. We're going to have to find some security to escort you out of this building at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Dave, going to leave it there only for the reasons of time, but thank you, Dave in Leeds. Keep your calls coming in, 0344 499 1000, as we kick around whether or not the pension triple lock is sustainable. Also, the worst place to drive in the United Kingdom, as it looks like Brum is going to become England's first 20-mile-per-hour city. All of that going on, and in a few moments' time, we'll catch up with Tom Jones, Deputy Online Editor of The Critic. This is Talk. It's 10:30.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. It's a Wednesday morning. I'm Duncan in for Julia Hartley-Brewer through until 1 o'clock this afternoon. 0344 499 1000. You want to be part of what's going on here. Essentially, duffing up Conservative commentator Benedict Spence for daring to suggest that pensioners should perhaps reflect and review their position regarding the love of the triple lock. More calls regarding that shortly, a stack of messages to get to as well. But let's bring into the conversation Tom Jones, Deputy Online Editor of The Critic. Morning, Tom.
Morning.
Good to see you and good to hear you as always. We're going to change direction ever so slightly this morning and talk about the exclusive migrant documentary that people can watch on Talk's YouTube channel that we showed last night, we launched last night as an exclusive, and we'll run something on that in a few moments' time. And also, before you go, we might get your views on the triple lock as well, because I think that'll be quite interesting. But I mean, look, you know, we've got this Talk exclusive, this documentary, which genuinely is staggering, but also highly depressing. And this is where we had someone posing as a migrant across the channel in a dinghy, and we saw the police in France giving people smugglers free lifts back to the camps. You couldn't make this stuff up. What do you make of it?
It's absolutely staggering. I think it just reminds us how crazy this border situation is. The one thing I always point out when it comes to the French authorities and the border is that if we were in France's position, we would be doing the same thing. Basically, this is not a problem they want. The problem here is that we have a migrant settlement package that is far too overgenerous and is a massive pull factor for migrants to come here, and therefore migrants keep coming here and they don't settle in France. Why? Because the opportunities for them in Britain are much, much, much better. So France's attitude, and I think you have to have some sympathy with this, is that if Britain wants these people so badly, then they should be able to take them. You know, why make it France's problem?
Yeah, I mean, you and I know this. I suspect listeners and viewers to Talk know this. There are too many pull factors which make Britain so attractive for people to cross the water in this dangerous way and in some cases lose their lives. We can see it. Why can't our government see it?
Do you know what? I'm constantly baffled by this question. I am ceasing to have a theory of mind for people in government. This issue has tanked multiple governments. It has essentially cost us our relationship with Europe. Yes, there were other issues, but immigration was the primary factor in the Brexit vote. It is threatening to consign Labour on one of their biggest majority ever to a single term in government, and is about to kill off, potentially, the world's oldest political party. And all we have to do, all the political class has to do to avoid any of this, you know, like Kali Yuga stage of politics, is simply reduce migration a little bit. They seem unable to grasp this very basic issue. And instead, we get cases like RAF Wethersfield. There was a report from there the other day. They have gyms, five-a-side sports halls, these, you know, fantastic facilities. It's like a little Butlins in there. We're paying £500,000 a day to transport those migrants into the nearest big towns. That means that people in those towns don't want to go there after 10 p.m. It's just absolutely baffling, particularly when nobody voted for this.
No. Nobody voted for it, and I get this real sense, and for me the other, or the most latest sad chapter in all of this was this document, this pamphlet that was published by the Home Office, you know, last week, basically saying to people who break into this country illegally, we don't rape people here, we don't abuse young girls. And I just thought, it's almost like we've given up trying to stop people coming to this country whose cultures and mindsets are very different. We've lost that battle. Now we've resorted to actually giving our leaflets saying, please behave yourself. And it's like Burnham's he seems not to understand the strength of feeling in this country about this.
Absolutely. I think one of the saddest things about that migrant leaflet was that somewhere in the bowels of Whitehall, there is a government graphic designer who had to spend, let's say, a couple of days knocking up an image of a passport of a 16-year-old girl to put on a leaflet to tell migrants that because she was 16, she was fair game. And I think it's really one of the most shameful things that I can remember in public life. It's absolutely disgusting. I think you're right. I don't think Burnham understands the severity of this issue. I think in part that's because he's been slightly insulated from national political issues once he's been up in Manchester, and also partially because he is much like the rest of Labour. This is not a problem that they really want to deal with. You know, they want they elected Keir Starmer, and now they've elected Andy Burnham on the premise that they can do nice, soft Labour things without having to make any hard choices. And this is a very hard choice that, frankly, they'd rather not have to make.
You're absolutely right. And you know, the other thing that's feeding into my view that we've just given up as a government or as a country with this, despite us talking about it on Talk almost every day because people are rightly angry about it, is, you know, the other day Burnham came out and said, oh, well, you know, people who come to this country, wealthy areas are going to have to take their fair share, not just poor areas of the United Kingdom. It's almost just like, oh, well, that's it then. You've given up. You've already decided that, you know, you're just going to spread this out right across the United Kingdom. Tom, stay where you are, because I just want to make sure our viewers and listeners this morning to Talk are across this documentary. It's an exclusive Talk documentary, Invading Britain, the Undercover Migrant Returns. Let's first off play a trail for this so you get a real sense of what it's about.
Go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fence, go on! And they're on the way over to the UK.
So that's the trailer for the documentary. I think I'm right in saying it premiered at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon here on Talk, because I was at home listening to Talk on my smart speaker, listening to it. That is the trailer. The voice you heard there is Christian Drogan, who is was basically operating as an undercover migrant. Let's just play you a bit more from the documentary. This is a clip of Isabel Oakeshott and the undercover migrant Christian Drogan discussing how French border police were enabling the people smugglers.
The police boat took control of our boat. So it put its bow on our bow, and it turned us round in a circle while they were talking to us. They said, don't go ahead, it's dangerous out there, it's very wavy.
This is very rough. Okay. Here it's quiet. When you go wider, it's really dangerous. The sea is very rough. Okay, the best way today is to go back.
So the police said that to us, you know, if anybody else wants to get off, get on our boat and we'll take you back. 4 smugglers, get on the gendarme boat, check for weapons, all okay, sit on the back, we'll take you back. The police, the gendarme, took the smugglers back to the shore.
So effectively, the police are giving the smugglers a free lift back to shore. There's a bit of a fig leaf going on here. Yeah. Oh, you know, a few people need to get off. Yeah. Nobody who's come all the way from sub-Saharan Africa changes their mind at that point. No. The police are taking them back to the French beaches where they're free to repeat the whole exercise. And the reason this works brilliantly for the smugglers is because they don't have to go all the way to England. What a hassle that is, only to come back again.
Yes. Nobody's recorded what I recorded. Smugglers getting onto the gendarme boat and being taken back to shore.
That is scandalous.
It is scandalous. What's not scandalous is the fact that we've got this original kind of journalism here on Talk that you will not hear or see anywhere else. Check out the full documentary. It is available on our YouTube channel, Invading Britain, the Undercover Migrant Returns. I'll warn you, I'll give you advance warning, if you've not watched it yet, your blood pressure will go through the roof, quite literally. Isabel Oakeshott there alongside the undercover migrant journalist Christian Drogan. Do I have to read this out from the Home Office? So you can tell that journalism, original journalism like that, has rattled those in power, because this is what the Home Office issued as a statement that we are obliged to read out here on Talk. You ready for this? This individual's actions were reckless. They made it more difficult for law enforcement officers to stop small boat crossings and save lives in dangerous conditions. Slap on the wrist, Isabel. and Christian. Our partnership with France is stronger than ever, with a new deal signed by the Home Secretary delivering a 40% uplift in boots on the ground. Together, we are piling the pressure on the criminal gangs and preventing illegal and dangerous crossings. Over 1,100 boats or engines have been seized since the election, 48,000 crossing attempts have been prevented, and the number of small boat crossings are down. That's the statement from the Home Office. Which is kind of interesting. I mean, do we think we get value for money for the £500 million we're paying the French police to try and stop this kind of stuff happening? Go to our YouTube channel, Talk, and check out the documentary. Let's just go back to Tom Jones, Deputy Online Editor of The Critic. I mean, that Home Office response, Tom, I mean, it's a fudge, isn't it? It's basically just ignoring the scale of the problem.
I think if I was to quote somebody, I would quote Margaret Thatcher saying, weak, feeble. I think this is absolutely insane stuff. You know, here, to be fair, the new deal that Shabana Mahmood has signed with France has seen an uptick in the number of boats that have been stopped. That is because they have tried the brand new idea, which they've never tried before. They've never had this idea before of running out to intercept boats on the beaches and flashing them before they are put in the water. Radical. And at the same time, they're running a ferry service for people smugglers. They must know at this stage who those people smugglers are. They know the business model. They could just take them back to a cell. They could just deport them from the country. And they are choosing not to do that. They're just putting them back on the beaches. This is absolutely pathetic stuff.
Benedict, anything in our documentary that surprises you there at all?
I mean, to be honest, no. I mean, yeah, having looked at all the footage and thinking, you know, it's sort of just staggering that every sort of trope that you hear, every sort of, you know, a story that you hear turns out to be very true. I mean, it's just the ease with which it all happens, and the fact that actually, you know, in many ways, actually, I was slightly surprised that nobody's thought of doing this before, but perhaps that's because we in Britain have an ill-placed faith in the state that at some point it will be rectified. But of course, this has been going on for, what is it, 8 years, 9 years now? Yeah. At some point, you know, this was always going to happen. Somebody was going to say, listen, I actually have to get inside this and show people what's happening. Will this have any impact? Will this change anything? I think Tom is absolutely right. They are weak and feeble in government. They have no interest in addressing this because it sounds a bit too much like hard work.
Benedict, thank you. Tom Jones, Deputy Online Editor for The Critic. Thank you as well for your time this morning here on Talk. More messages and more calls to get to regarding the triple lock and taxing pensioners, because we can't afford to pay for our pensioners anymore. Also talking about Birmingham becoming the first all-over 20-mile-per-hour city. Where's the worst place to drive in the United Kingdom? Do let me know. 0344 499 1000 for that and our pensions chat here this morning at Talk. But up next, the sad news that we heard yesterday evening regarding the death of a musical legend. I'm talking about Dolly Parton. We'll talk to Steve Denyer, Virgin Radio presenter, about her legacy and life next here at Talk.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, come on! Ready, full touch, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Almost 10 to 11, Wednesday morning. This is Talk. I'm Duncan in for Julia through until 1 o'clock this afternoon. Let's break from the politics for a second and talk about some very sad news that we heard yesterday evening regarding the death of Dolly Parton at the age of 80, country music legend, one of the greatest female singers of all time. Let's chew this over and celebrate the life of Dolly with Steve Denyer, presenter on Virgin Radio. Good to see you, Steve.
Good morning, Duncan.
A lot of stuff to talk about here. I mean, I think it's fair to say the majority of us weren't aware that she was ill because she died after a short illness, and we know it was confirmed by her estate and spokespeople that she had cancer, and then we heard of her death last night. But I mean, it's not until, sadly, sometimes someone passes away or passes on that you then start reading the obits and you just realise what an amazing life they had.
Absolutely, and that is particularly the case with Dolly Parton. It's very rare that you get somebody passing away, and if you're on social media, your entire timeline is full of love and respect for somebody. And like you say, I mean, it was a big shock last night when that news broke. She was actually photographed, she was pictured in a video 11 days ago, making her very final kind of public appearance. And you would never have guessed. There've been rumours about her health for the last kind of year when she backed out of a couple of shows. But it was all looking good, really, until about 9 days ago. But her legacy is what will live on. And I was chatting to Chris Evans this morning on Virgin Radio. So she's been on TFI a few times, and he said the thing about her is you remember and you love the person as much as you do with the music. He said, quite simply, she was playful, she was brilliant. Every single TV appearance, she sat on Chris's legs to begin with, he got on his knees. I've got a little clip, actually. We're going to load this on our TFI Unseen episode this week. Dolly Parton, Chris Evans from 1998. Have a look.
Started singing on radio and television when I was 10 years old. Back in East Tennessee, where I was born and raised, there were some local shows, and then I moved to Nashville in 1964, and I've been hot and heavy at it ever since then.
She's been hot and heavy, everybody. And so, I mean, how bad was it? You know, were you an immediate success, or did you play some horrible bars with horrible people that threw things at you?
What you always do when you're trying to start out in the business, especially being a girl back then, my age, and singing in these bars and honky-tonks, and I had a lot of stuff to put up with, but
Did you get the old rednecks coming on to you?
Oh, major, big time.
What did you say to the old guys?
Oh, I said different things. It just depended, but lucky for me, though, I'm from a family of 12 kids, so I have 6 brothers, and I'm real close to my dad. I had all these uncles and cousins, so I knew how to whoop a boy's ass if he got
That is a great clip. So that's going on the TFI channel later, is it?
TFI Unseen. It's going to be part of our episode this week. It drops at 6 p.m. on Virgin Radio UK or YouTube page. She went on to tell Chris that she'd written over 3,000 songs. And he said, well, you know, surely they can't all be good. And she said, lots of them are terrible. She said, but you look at them like your favourite kids, and some of them are better looking than others. She was just so funny and so great, and her legacy is incredible. I mean, songs like Jolene and I Will Always Love You were apparently written within the same year.
Now, can we talk about I Will Always Love You?
Yes.
Because I was reading about this on the train coming in earlier, despite Southern Rail's best attempts not to get me here on time. And I was reading the obit, and it's a great obit in the Times today, and it talks about that song, I Will Always Love You, that I think it's fair to... I mean, Dolly recorded it originally. It was her song, but it got proper worldwide recognition because it was used in the soundtrack to the film The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston. She had a massive global hit with it, etc. I didn't realise until today, and you'll probably know this because you are a showbiz guru, but I didn't realise that Elvis asked Dolly Parton if he could record the song.
Yes.
Do a version of it.
Yeah.
And she decided to say no because he wanted a songwriting credit, which is bizarre because he didn't write the song, but also half the royalties as well. And she said in this piece, in one of the interviews, and they featured it in the Times, it's in today's Times, that, you know, that was the right decision because he didn't write the song, and why should he get half the money? But she said, I kind of regret it because I would have loved to have heard Elvis sing I Will Always Love You. Can you imagine it?
Yeah, I mean, and also that is probably, she's known as a businesswoman. That's probably the greatest business decision she ever made in her entire life, because she made more money from that one song than any others. But I'm with you. I would love to have heard the Elvis version. The Whitney Houston version is the one that most of us grew up with, and that it became the song of the 90s, really, wasn't it? From the movie of the 90s. I met Dolly Parton at the premiere of the 9 to 5 musical, which is in London's West End. Must be about a decade ago. There's footage of the actors breaking the news to the audience last night on stage at Pavilions in Worthing. The actors, you know, turned up to the stage show. They didn't know anything about it. I remember speaking to Graham Norton about Dolly Parton. He went over to Dolly's Splash World. Yes. And he said that she was so much fun. She said, no, I'm going to get into a rubber ring with you and we're going to go around. All the stuff like, there's no way Dolly will get her hair wet. But she did it, and she was in, you know, and he said that she was everything and more that you would expect.
And it really comes across, I mean, from that clip with Chris from TFI and also various other interviews, she was genuinely good fun as well. There's a great quote that's circulating this morning, which is something along the lines of, it takes a lot of money to look this cheap, you know, which is a great deprecating comment, isn't it? Yeah. You know, and also the other stuff that's coming out this morning, and I think some people will be aware of it, but not everyone. And I found myself thinking, I wonder if this is linked to her very, you know, background of poverty, actually. She mentioned in that clip she was one of 12 kids. They had nothing, right? And she's built up. She's a great businesswoman, had a great career and stuff. But her charity work was off the scale. I mean, she donated millions of pounds in her lifetime to all kinds of causes.
It's an incredible achievement. Her father was illiterate, so she made an absolute beeline of giving books to charities and helping kids. And from a tiny room in Tennessee to becoming one of the world's greatest performers, but also one of the greatest givers to so many people, to so many charities, mainly children's charities, helping illiterate kids have a better start in their life than she had. She was one of 12. She had to fight her way through the beginnings of her life. It's an incredible story.
It really is a great story. What do you think her legacy will be musically? Because I was tuning around some music stations last night, tuning around the dial, and, you know, people rightly were playing some Dolly songs. I heard I Will Always Love You a few times. I heard Jolene a few times. What do you think is going to be... I mean, of course, there's that duet, isn't there, from... You'll know this because you're big into 80s music. Was it 83 with Kenny Rogers, Islands in the Stream? Which is just a great song.
I mean, there's so much, because she told Chris Evans she's written over 3,000 songs, different styles. I probably would go for 9 to 5. I think it's the most famous. I mean, bearing in mind the Empire State Building last night was lit up in pink at 9:25 New York time. It's a great little legacy. It's such a famous song. The musical was written around that. For me, but then if I think about it, I think it depends on your mood, the day it is. There is a great back catalogue for everybody to enjoy. So many songs, so many different genres, so many eras. We've lost a good one. We've lost a good one.
I've got a bit of a musical guilty pleasure when it comes to Dolly Parton. There's someone who started talking into microphones as a... Sorry about this. As a music jock on a light and easy...
I've heard you. You're very good.
Station
you're very good.
A long time ago. That's not a pitch for anyone who wants to give me a show on Virgin Legends, by the way. But Here You Come Again by Dolly Parton. Do you remember that song?
No, I don't.
Here You Come Again is it's got a country music basis, but it's ever so slightly poppy. I just love that song. I urge anyone listening and watching to check out Dolly and Here You Come Again. Steve, it's been great. Thank you for joining us.
Lovely
and
to
just
see you.
Recap again, that clip is going to be on the TFI Friday channel when?
Yeah, TFI Unseen. It arrives on Friday evening at 6 p.m. If you go to Virgin Radio UK, it's our YouTube channel. Just hit subscribe and you'll get an alert as soon as it's with you. But it's a delight. It's 9 minutes. It's Dolly Parton being playful at her best on the TFI desk.
Nice one. Thank you for coming in. Thanks for your time. Benedict, Dolly Parton fan?
Not a Dolly Parton fan any more than the average person who knows all the hits, but, you know, everybody knows them, and actually you always sort of find yourself sort of, you know, bumping your head along to them or tapping your foot. And she's somebody who I think actually is a bit of a relic. She represents a part of American culture that was sort of iconic and totemic and is now disappearing. And actually I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, not about Dolly Parton, actually more about the transatlantic accent that Hollywood actors used to have. You know, that slightly refined sort of accent that everybody, and you weren't quite sure if it was a bit camp, a bit British, you weren't quite sure. But it's gone and it's died. In a similar way, that kind of real deep southern drawl, that really deep thing, that you don't hear that very much anymore. And she was one of the last sort of celebrities who you know, instantly you could identify with based on her sort of working class upbringings. That's just sort of, it's all of that sort of diversity in American culture. It's slowly eroding away as it sort of becomes much more of a monoculture. I think that's quite sad.
I think you're right, and the thing that struck me as well is that we're not going to see stars like that in the future.
No.
You know, as marvellous as Taylor Swift is, for example, that kind of legacy and that kind of life we're not going to see repeated. Let's squeeze in a call about pensions, Benedict. Someone's telling me I should apologise to you for keep talking over you. I didn't think I was talking over you earlier.
Only 3 or 4 times.
I was just putting forward the opposing view. Stuart, welcome to Talk. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to say that I fully endorse the proposal or the suggestion that your guest speaker is making. In fact, if I had my eye, I would go a little bit further. I certainly think means testing people who can afford to go without the state pension is a no-brainer, irrespective of whether they've paid in or not. I think that's irrelevant, and I think that the country has become, over the last, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years, become completely drugged up on this whole concept of consumerism. People buy cars and on PCPs that they can't afford to buy and own themselves, so they've got it on tick, so they want to have all the enjoyments of life without actually thinking about making provisions for themselves when they come to retirement. It's something they could kick the can down the road. Certainly for my part, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I left school without any qualifications to speak of. And I decided I wasn't going to rely on the state.
So Stuart, just for a bit of clarity, and thank you for your call, how would you means test it? If you believe that we should means test the state pension, I mean, Benedict earlier was saying that if you've got, let's say, assets over £1 million, for example, you probably shouldn't get the state pension. I mean, does that sound fair to you, or would you go in a bit harder?
Well, I don't know that if I've got the solution for that. I'm really not so interested in how somebody the government works out how to wean society off of the state pension system, but I think that people should provide for their own retirement other than people who absolutely are unable to do that. So people with profound disabilities or you know, people who just can't work from day one, those people should be supported. But everyone else, I think, is fair game. You know, we all have to pay for our own way in life, and I think relying on the state is a naive approach.
Well, that's a really interesting take, and maybe we have become too reliant over the years. Stuart, thank you. It's Talk. It's a Wednesday morning. I'm Duncan in for Julia. More calls and more guests after 11. Don't go anywhere.
It is therefore my honour to declare that the duly elected leader of the Labour Party is Andy Burnham.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do things completely differently to Starmer, then people would say, hold on, mate, we need a general election in that case, because no one voted for that. No one voted for you to be Prime Minister. You weren't standing in the 2024 general election. We've never seen your manifesto. Who the hell are you? That's what people would be asking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Talk on a Wednesday. I'm Duncan Barkes. I'm in for Julia Hartley-Brewer. If you put us on YouTube and you want to see someone attractive, well, Julia's off this week and Alex Phillips returns tomorrow at 10 o'clock. You've got this fat lump here through until 1 o'clock this afternoon here on the home of common sense. It is Talk. Alongside me is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, through until 1. Someone just messaged me on social media saying you'd prefer if I called you Benny. That can't be right, can it?
I have no idea who that is, and no, it's not right. Okay. I mean, we've also had Dominic this morning. We get that a lot, but, you know, call me whatever you want. Let's make this creative.
Well, it's fair to say you're ruffling some feathers, but that's the whole point of this station. We choose stuff over, and one of the big issues is the triple lock on the pensions. There's a lot of stuff circulating in today's papers and elsewhere saying it's time to review it as a country. We cannot afford it. Your thoughts on that? Is it sustainable? 0344 499 1000. Also, there's a think tank, a Labour's favourite think tank, suggesting that pensioners should be taxed. We might look at that story in a bit more detail, but the kind of common denominator there is a bit of pensioner bashing, or as Benedict might say, well, actually, I'll let you say it. You know, it's not about bashing pensioners. It's about realising the dire financial situation this country is in, and they have to share some of the pain. That's a fair assessment, isn't it?
That's what I would say, yes.
Yeah. So we're looking at that. And also, I want to get a few more calls on this, because we're hearing about Birmingham and the council's idea to make it the first all-over 20-mile-per-hour city outside of all of the A roads. It's a council made up of Lib Dems and Greens. Yawn. Don't expect anything else. But I just feel there's a war on motorists that's taking place. You want to give me your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. Where is the worst place to drive in the United Kingdom? All of that is going on this morning, and we got some great guests, including Andrew Alliston, head of campaigns at Popular Conservatism. He joins us. Morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Duncan.
Good to see you this morning, and good to hear you. Thank you for joining us this morning on Talk. A ton of stories to get through. We're going to just move things on a little bit, because from a political standpoint, we learned yesterday that Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is planning a reshuffle when MPs return from their summer break next week, when Parliament is back sitting after the summer recess. The Tory leader will announce significant changes to her shadow cabinet before the annual conference in October, taking place in Birmingham. It's going to be a second reshuffle since she replaced Rishi Sunak. I suppose, Andrew, we'll start off by asking you, does this need to happen, do you think? Why doesn't she just stick with the people she's got?
Well, I think that something has to happen, but of course she is being forced into this to a certain extent, as Claire Coutinho, I think has been excellent, is going to go off on maternity leave, and I hope that she does return to the shadow cabinet when she comes back off that maternity leave. I also hope that that isn't just it, that it's basically a reshuffle to cover maternity leave. I hope it's a little bit more than that. I mean, Kemi did say around about 18 months ago that this was the shadow cabinet that she was going to take into the next general election. I thought that was a little foolish to say that, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't know quite how well certain members of the shadow cabinet are going to perform in their briefs. They may struggle in one area, but they may excel in another area. I think you've got to give these sort of things time to bed in. But with all the briefing that's been going on, Duncan, I really hope that this isn't going to be some sort of damp squib of a reshuffle. I mean, I would like to see someone like Andrew Griffiths, for example, to come in and replace Mel Stride as Shadow Chancellor. That's one sort of change I would like to see. I also think the Conservative Party could do with a new chairman. I don't think Kevin Holland-Rigg is really cutting the mustard, and he could be replaced with someone better. So I really do hope there is something in this story.
Yeah, let's pick over it in a little bit more detail, because I'm keen to get your thoughts on the situation the Conservative Party find themselves in. Now, under Kemi's leadership, they have increased in the polls over the last year. A little bit, but not to the extent that her personal approval ratings have gone up. And some people are going, this is interesting, you know, more and more people are saying they like Kemi as leader of the Conservatives, but that's not necessarily translating itself into a massive poll boost for the Conservative Party per se. As some commentators say, you know, part of the problem is no one knows who her shadow cabinet is, and actually she needs far better communicators around her to spread the Conservative message, and that might lead to a poll boost for the party. Is that fair comment, do you think?
Well, the clue is in the title there. It is the shadow cabinet. Yeah. It's not the cabinet, and therefore they are not going to be as well known as the cabinet members. But I'd also be interested in a poll to say, do you know who these full cabinet members are, members of the government? Because I imagine that most people don't even know who they are as well. So I wouldn't get too worried about that. I think Kemi is doing a good job leading the Conservative Party, and you're right. I mean, her personal numbers are good. I mean, I think most politicians would accept the numbers that she has. The problem that the Conservative Party has got, it got a shellacking at the 2024 general election, as we know, and the people who I talk to tend to say, we don't trust the Conservative Party. We're not going to vote for the Conservative Party again. Now, I've heard people say that year after year after year about various political parties. But what it does tell you is that it will take quite a long time before people will ever want to trust the Conservative Party again. And she's got to rebuild that trust. And simply saying that we're under new management now, we're not going to do things in the way that we used to do it in the past, is not going to wash. She will have to prove that. So that's the problem that she's got.
Because I'm guessing there is an argument, isn't there? There's an argument here that if you, in your shadow cabinet, if you've got people like Mel Stride, who's now Shadow Chancellor, but used to be Work and Pension Secretary when the Tories were in power, if you've got Priti Patel, who's still in the shadow cabinet and had various cabinet positions when the Tories were in power, if you're saying we're under new management, but then you look at the shadow cabinet and you've got the old faces from the past, that is actually quite damaging potentially, and could be used, and it is used, as an attack line by rival parties like Reform UK.
Well, yes, of course, Duncan. I mean, that is bound to happen. But I suppose in Kemi's defence here, I would have to say that when she only had just over 100 MPs to choose from, I'm afraid some of those older faces had to be recycled. You couldn't just put a brand new MP into a sort of shadow secretary of state position. And of course, the Conservative Party finds itself in a similar position when it comes to disagreeing with certain policies. You know, why doesn't the government sort this out? And people say, well, you had 14 years to sort that out, and you didn't.
If I had a quiz for every Reform UK politician who'd said that, I'd be in Bermuda at the moment. Listen, very quickly, whilst we remain on this, just tell me who maybe you'd like to see enter the shadow cabinet going forward. The rising stars. I mean, the name Katie Lamb is often bandied around. Jack Rankin, who I've interviewed in the past, I'm quite a fan of as well. Are they the faces? Are they the future names and voices of the Conservative Party, do you think?
I think they are, Duncan, yes. I mean, when you asked me that question, they were the first two names that came to mind. So I would like to see greater roles for them. And as I said, I think that Mel Stride is not really cutting the mustard as the Shadow Chancellor. I like to see someone much more proactive coming in, someone like Andrew Griffiths.
Stay where you are for a second, Andrew. Benedict, you're a Conservative commentator. The future makeup of the shadow cabinet, anyone you'd like to see in there?
I wouldn't like to see those sort of people who've been listening. I mean, Katie Lamb is just, very popular because she's young and she's female and she's good on social media, but she is the female Robert Jenrick, and that her politics can change very quickly and is very ambitious. This is, I'm afraid, a large part of the problem.
Can I just say, I'm not interrupting you for fun, but the Katie Lamb thing, I've always said, if you asked AI to create the perfect young female Conservative MP, AI would create Katie Lamb, right?
Almost a little too perfect because she is, and that's I'm afraid a large part of the problem with the Conservative Party in general. It remains the vehicle for highly ambitious people who are not necessarily, shall we say, the most resolute on their worldview, and even when they are, it clashes quite badly with the sort of people that they need to win over. Now that Reform UK exists, those people actually have an avenue so that they don't then have to go, all right, I'm going to go back to the Tories reluctantly. The issue with a lot of this is it actually doesn't matter who's behind the scenes right now, because it is a lot about the leader. People like Kemi Badenoch. Actually, they think she's doing remarkably better than they thought she was doing, and certainly when you compare her to everybody else, they think, fantastic, actually she's a breath of fresh air. The issue is, again, the Conservative Party itself. The Conservative Party has spent 14 years revelling in the fact that it loves to have these psychodramas, as they call them, wrongly, but that's what they like to do. They like to stab their own leaders in the back. They like to have the leadership contest, so the average voter justifiably can sit there and go, I really like Kemi Badenoch. If I elect her, will she still be leader in 18 months? Can I actually trust you, the Conservative Party, to keep this person in place? Or is somebody else who's very ambitious going to try and get rid of her, and then I'm stuck with whoever it is, and I don't know who that person is? That, I'm afraid, is a major brand problem that the Tories have, and it is going to take a full-scale sweep of the shop to get rid of that, so that there is, as you say, nobody that they can pin on and go, oh, I remember you. Weren't you one of the plotters from last time? Weren't you particularly useless in a particular department last time? That's their problem.
But Andrew makes the point quite correctly that actually Kemi doesn't have a great deal of choice. I mean, where is the talent?
This is why it's going to be a really long-term job. There is, I hear this from, especially on social media, I get into discussions with, I was about to say Tory MPs, they tend to be former Tory MPs, and they tend to be former Tory MPs for a reason, who are absolutely certain that there is a bounce happening and that it's all sunshine and rainbows and they're on the up. And of course they have to say that because they think that they're going to stand at the next election and get their seats back. But actually that's not the reality. Actually, they have not yet got over that threshold. There's far too much optimism in the short term because Reform is having a real wobble, and it is having a real wobble. I think that they have forgotten that the Tories' 14 years of government shattered the covenant that they had with a lot of their voters. Those people will not go back to them overnight. And just because actually they're polling quite well now does not mean that those people have forgiven them. It will take time before they do.
A quick question just related to this. I mean, we know that Grant Shapps, for example, is not going to be allowed to stand again as a Conservative candidate. We know there was stuff in the press last week about Penny Mordaunt, former MP for Portsmouth North, still waiting to hear whether or not she'll be able to be selected to stand as a candidate. Is that the right way to treat former Conservative MPs?
Yes, actually. I think that this needs to be a performance-based thing. The Conservative Party, of all parties, should run itself like we're sat in the middle of London and we can see the City of London over there. It should run itself like a bank. It should run itself very aggressively in terms of performance. People who do not perform should not be given favours and allowed back in because they're mates with somebody or they're influential. That's what's got the Conservative Party to this position in the first place. It should be ruthless about weeding these people out and promoting people who have got track records of doing very well, not necessarily in politics, but elsewhere, in business, in real life. It has a golden opportunity to reinvent itself. Will it do that? I don't think so.
Andrew, I'll ask the same question to you before we move it on a little bit. I mean, you heard what I said to Benedict there, the idea that certain former Conservative MPs are either waiting to find out they're going to be allowed to stand or being told they can't stand again. Is that the right approach from Kemi?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Benedict on that. The Conservative Party prides itself in being a meritocratic party of the free market. Well, why would it want to carry on selecting people who basically haven't really been all that successful? We have to move from the past, and the party has to move forward.
Very quickly, one of the things we're chewing over this morning, though it is being dwarfed about our triple lock on the state pension debate, but I'm still keen to get views on this, is the news that Birmingham is aiming to become England's first 20-mile-per-hour city by lowering speed limits on most of its roads. It's a council that is run by the Lib Dems, the Greens and Independents. They talk about it creating more road safety. We know that the Welsh Government under Labour had 20-mile-per-hour speed limits. They now rode back on that. We know that some people just find themselves, myself included, going, well, I kind of get 20 mile per hour limits around schools and stuff, but really, do we need 20 mile per hour limits at 3:15 in the morning, you know, on a road in Bristol? I mean, what's your take on this? What's driving this, if you pardon the pun, do you think?
Well, I had to check who was in control of Birmingham City Council before I came on air. And when I found out it was a sort of Liberal Democrat Green coalition, then I really wasn't surprised. Yeah. So what is driving this? Well, I think we know exactly what's driving this. And since those 20 miles per hour, blanket 20 miles per hour zones were introduced in Wales about 3 years ago, they still remain unpopular, and they haven't to roll back on them, because I agree, it is very sensible to keep your speed down near a school when children are going there in the morning or they're leaving on afternoon. It makes perfect sense. But equally, it doesn't make any sense to have a 20 miles per hour speed limit outside a school when no children are there, when it's during the school holidays. And I've seen that on plenty of occasions. Most drivers just drive properly. They drive sensibly. You're going to get a minority who will not do that. And it doesn't really make any difference what the speed limit is. They will still drive recklessly. It should all just be on a case-by-case basis. You know, if there's a junction or a particular road where people are dicing with death every time they cross it, then by all means reduce the speed limit down there. Maybe put an extra pedestrian crossing there. Try to make it a little bit safer. But this idea of a blanket 20 miles per hour zone, our cities move slowly enough as it is, without really grinding them to a halt.
It's hard not to conclude it's just using the motorist as a cash cow, because we know these are enforced by various speed cameras all over the place. Let's get a view on this. Lee is in Sheffield. Hello, Lee. Welcome to Talk.
Hi.
Very good, sir. Benedict's here. Andrew's here. What would you like to say?
So, I'm an HGV driver. I drive all over the country. And the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits are more dangerous than anything else. All you find is people are looking at the speedos more than they're looking at the roads, because there's that many speed cameras. 20 mile an hour is ridiculous. In London, whatever, you can't go more than 20 mile an hour most of the time in London anyway because of traffic. Yeah. But anywhere else, it's just absolutely pointless, and it is just money grabbing. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to. So if we don't care about safety, if we don't care about out like that, it's about money. Same as the speed cameras on the motorways. The smart motorways, what a load of crap. They put speed limits up when there's no traffic, and funnily enough, there's a speed camera. So they're slowing you down and speeding you up constantly. I see it all the time, day in, day out. It is just to make money. That is all it is.
All right, I mean, you've been good enough to call up, Lee. You're a professional driver. You drive an HGV. These 20 mile per hour limits, presumably when you experience them, how much, I suppose the word I was going to use is delay. How damaging is it for you to do your job that if you've got to adhere to a 20 mile per hour limit at 4 o'clock in the morning when there's no one on the roads?
It's absolutely pointless. Yeah. The 20 mile an hour speed limits outside schools, where you have your flashing amber lights, absolutely perfect. Outside some schools, really hazardous, double parked cars, kids can run out, absolutely fine, no problem with that whatsoever. But when you're just driving down a main high street, there's absolutely no need for it. It is just money making. That is all it's there for. Same as everything else. Everything is just about to squeeze as much money out of a working person as possible. And the country is just an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, that's how it feels, isn't it? Listen, look after yourself, mate. Thank you for your call. That's Lee in Sheffield. 0344 499 1000, the number if you want to pick up on anything we've been chewing over. Andrew Allison, thank you for your time this morning. Always a pleasure to hear you and talk to you here on Talk. Andrew's the head of campaigns Popular Conservatism. Benny, stack of calls to get to here. We've got people all over the United Kingdom, Sheffield, Burton-on-Trent, Liverpool, Sussex and Surrey and Manchester.
And slowly Birmingham.
Slowly Birmingham. We'll get to those calls next, here at Talk.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was getting it. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full touch, go on! And we're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's the place where the UK comes to talk. It is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Duncan here on this Wednesday morning, just turned 11:20. How sustainable is the pension triple lock? 0344 499 1000. Should we be taxing pensioners more? That's what a Labour-affiliated think tank is suggesting this morning. And a bit of chat about Brum, the once great city of Birmingham, to become England's first 20-mile-per-hour city. Just in the interests of balance, if you are someone who's an advocate of a blanket 20-mile-per-hour speed limit all over a town or city, you're more than welcome to come on the air. 0344 499 1000. But I can't get beyond this idea that it's simply about finding another way to fleece the motorist. Benedict is here, Conservative commentator, taking a little bit of flack this morning from some of our viewers and listeners regarding his view on scrapping the pensions triple lock. We're going to talk to Jenny in Surrey in a second and Peter in Liverpool. Let's do some of these messages. There's one here that supports you, I think. This is Rick in North Wales. As a millennial like Benedict, is there any consideration for people like us who could easily never see our public pension if we keep spending as we are? I would happily opt out if I get my 26 years of payments back and then I'll look after myself. That's an interesting point of view, isn't it?
Well, it is true, ultimately. A lot of people are foreseeing that there won't be a state pension when we get to pensionable age, and this is the thing that a lot of people are saying, that they've paid into it, therefore they deserve it, are missing. Because I'm also paying into it. You're paying into it. Everybody is paying into it, and it's not ours if we don't get it, but our country may not be able to afford it. So where's the fairness in that?
Stephen Leicestershire, pensions. So you want to take money off pensioners to give to other countries?
No.
And people coming into this country illegally. You want to give the illegals a better life at the expense of the pensioners that have been paying their taxes all their working lives and supporting others. Leave the pensioners alone. They have done their bit, says Steve. A few more here. David in Canterbury. Benedict's criticism of the triple lock and state pension entitlement definitely needs to be discussed. In the last 7 to 8 years of my mum's 36-year retirement, after the death of my dad, her pension income was several £1,000s a month and she didn't need the state pension at all, says David. And we'll do another one here. This is Maureen, who says, stop bashing the pensioners who worked long hours for pension before the chance of having a private pension. All the money being paid to the layabouts on PIP and all the other associated benefits, and take everything, and I do mean everything, away from these illegals. Let's take a call in Surrey. It's Jenny. Hello, Jen.
Good morning.
Morning. Benedict's here. What would you like to say this morning?
Oh, well, I have an issue over the pension being called a benefit. I'm a pensioner now. My first job was counting pension contributions for the national insurance contributions for the pension. If you didn't have enough contributions, you didn't get the full pension. I don't get the full pension because I didn't have enough contributions. But we were so hard up when we were first married, paying nearly 9% on our mortgage. We were so hard up, I decided to go on the married woman's stamp, and so I don't get the full pension now because of that. We didn't go out for meals. We didn't have takeaways. We were really hard up. We didn't have any food in the fridge a lot of the time. So, giving money away to people who've never contributed to this country is completely wrong. Plain lady bountiful to the world, giving money to foreign countries who have their own space programs is a crazy idea. There's so much money wasted. We need a few business people running this country. Run it like a business. Let's make a profit. Let's make it a good product. Put British people first.
Yeah, so you think there are other places that money could be saved from before you look at cutting the triple lock. And you're going to move it on, Jenny, so we can get more voices on the air. Thank you for your call. Peter's in the great city of Liverpool. Morning, Peter.
Good morning. You were talking about the burden and debt we've got in this country.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if we started with net zero overseas aid, the benefits bill, Ukraine, foreign benefits, migrants bill, migrants free luxury trips,
pandemic,
the money we pay to the French. And, you know, if you want to cut back, let's start with civil servants' pensions, gold-plated pensions. There's plenty of opportunity to cut back, but they always look at the pensioners. This generation of pensioners you've got now are the people that contribute. Do you know that you could work all your life, get a £12,500 pension? You could stay on benefits all your life and get £12,300 in universal credit.
OK, Peter, let me ask you a question, if I may. I mean, and I think I can ask you this fairly, given what you said. If you're of the view, you take the position that it's always the pensioners people are going after. Why do you think that is?
Well, it sounds very much like the Labour policy of the winter fuel allowance. You know, or the Benedict's policy of, you know, the policy of jealousy. Somebody who's got £1 million house needs to be... It sounds like a Labour Party policy, that.
I mean, do you not have a sympathetic view, which is if someone does have assets of over £1 million, they probably don't need the state pension? I mean, I can... Go on.
I'm of the opinion that if someone's paid in, whether they're a millionaire or not a millionaire, I'm not jealous because they're a millionaire or they live in £1 million house. I think they paid in, they should get it. There's no other way around that. And these...
All right, let me get Benedict to pick that up. Go on.
Peter, it's interesting because you gave a long list of other things that we could cut in terms of national spending. And actually, I agree with a lot of those. But one, actually, I'm afraid to say, did prick my ears, which was that you said that maybe we could spend a little bit less on civil servants' gold-plated pensions. So you do agree, in fact, that there are some pensioners who are getting more than they should and that maybe they should be targeted.
I'm talking about the average person that works in the private sector, not the people who work for the civil servants, who work in government, who work in local councils, who are on fantastic pensions. That's why your council tax is going up so much, because we're paying it all into their pension.
So people working in the public sector should have their pensions checked, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
So you agree with me? There are pensioners who are getting more money than they necessarily should, that we shouldn't be paying to them.
No, I don't. I don't agree with you. Because
so you want to take their money away, but you don't want to take their money away. I'm just trying to see the logic here.
I know civil servants. I look at it this way. I worked hard all my life in the construction industry, and you never got a pension when I first started in the building industry. Now, there's people in the civil servants who I know who have retired, who are on, I don't know, fantastic money. The money they get is far outstrips the pension I get.
Yeah. I mean, certainly it is something that I think needs to be discussed, because those in the public sector do have some pretty chunky and tasty pensions coming down the track. So listen, Peter, I'm going to move it on only because I want to get Graham in, who's in Colchester. Morning, Graham. Welcome to Talk.
Good morning, Duncan.
What would you like to say, sir?
Well, it's more or less on the same thing as everything else. I retire in about 3 years' time, and I'll agree that the triple lock does have to be looked at. Maybe do just a single or a double lock instead. But bashing the pensioners again, especially the private sector, as has been noted, and also because Starmer tried that, got berated. If Burnham tries it, he will suffer as well.
Do you know, you make a really interesting point. All of this debate is about triple lock, not triple lock. We could just peg pensions to the rate of inflation, and that way that, you know, people still get value for money, job done.
Do you know what? That at least is a start. That's a step in the right direction. But what we seem to be having here is the conversation, which is that actually, and we're getting this from a lot of people who are calling in, no, we must keep it. No, absolutely everything that you paid into, you're entitled to, even if it doesn't match up. At the very least here, we have a suggestion that, well, maybe there can be some movement on it. That's what we want to try and achieve here. We just want a slight shifting of the playing field so that it's slightly more even.
What would you do, Graham? Would you means test it? How would you make it fairer?
You probably means test it, but you've got to set the level quite high, because there are a lot of pensioners that do actually struggle. and they're not entitled, unfortunately, because the level of money that they get per year doesn't entitle them to a lot of the benefits that they're able to get.
Yeah, I mean, because you can be asset rich but cash poor, can't you?
That's true. And, you know, I use $1 million as an arbitrary example because it's a headline figure. But it might be that that's not possible. If you've got £1 million when you're 65, that might disappear very quickly by the time you're 90 if you've got very serious medical bills. But the point is, there has to be a starting place where we say we have to look at it. If that's more than $1 million, if it has to be slightly more, I'm happy to have that conversation. But we have to have the conversation in the first place.
Graham in Colchester, thank you for your call. It's Talk. It's a Wednesday morning, just turned 11:30. Who would have thought it? We discovered this morning that the pursuit of net zero has failed to cut British energy bills. It's going up and up and up. We'll get more on this in a few moments' time here at Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, just turned 11:30. It's Talk on a Wednesday morning. I'm Duncan in for Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's turn our attention to the increase in energy bills. As we discover this morning, the Britain's rush to net zero has failed to deliver cheaper energy. This is according to a report that found large manufacturers pay about 4 times more for electricity as rivals overseas. A lot of stuff related to this to pick over this morning here on Talk. We need an analyst, we need an expert, and it's just as well we've got one. This is Andy Mayer, energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Pleasure to talk to you this morning. I mean, I don't think this is going to come as a massive surprise to anyone, is it?
No, I mean, people have been warned about pending energy bill rises for most of the last year, particularly after trouble started in the Middle East around the Strait of Hormuz and the effect that's principally had on gas prices. But behind the figures, the 4% is what is in the headlines, and that's about in comparison to the previous period, so last quarter.
Yeah.
But more troubling, underlying those figures, it's up about a third since the last election in 2024 and more than double the 2019 prices. So this is a very serious and sustained long-term rise, which, although it is clearly influenced by gas prices, is influenced mostly by the underlying system and policy costs, which are unique to the UK alone.
Yeah, be kind enough to break this down for our listeners and viewers this morning at Talk. How much of someone's typical bill is made up with the pursuit of net zero or green levies?
Well, it's quite hard to segregate because it relies on a bunch of different things. But just to make it really simple, about 40–50% are wholesale costs. And that varies depending on the gas price. If it's very low, and so on. What happens in the UK is that the prices overall don't fall as fast as they do elsewhere. because we've been building a very large electricity grid and will continue to do so in order to cope with a very large renewables fleet, which is distributed in more places here than in other places. So that is a very different system to the one we were used to in the 1990s, where we had lots of large coal-fired power plants, gas-fired power plants and nuclear power stations in a very small number of locations, which then needed a much smaller grid. The other thing that's been happening, which has been highlighted in a different report from a company called BCG, is that demand for electricity in the UK has been falling. Because we've made our prices higher and increased the fixed cost of the grid and the system behind it, the overall charge for each unit of electricity that we use has risen. So what we need instead, they suggest, is a focus relentlessly on growth, so things like data centres, which would then bring with them the investment case for new sources of electrical power. Now, whether that's renewables or nuclear power or gas-fired power or anything else is very much a choice for those investors. But at the moment, the investment climate in the UK for energy is dire for all these different industries. They don't trust the government. The government increasingly feels it needs to offer them bribes and sweeties in order to get them to come here, which just isn't working. It's the approach that's failed over the last 25 years.
The pursuit of net zero, I mean, is I think, increasingly politically problematic. We know, for example, that Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Party will say, well, you know, we're going to scrap these net zero targets. In fact, you know, if you want to stand as a Conservative MP at the next general election, you have to basically buy into that pledge. We know Reform UK think net zero is a load of old nonsense. We have a Labour government who seem to want to persevere with this. The previous Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, who, I mean, was almost zealous in this, has been replaced by Mattia Febule, who even today has admitted on a different channel that investment in net zero projects is pushing up household bills. These people just seem to be utterly blinkered around this.
It's very tricky. So if we simplify this, it's essentially net zero versus not zero. And not zero doesn't mean you abandon decarbonisation entirely, but you take a more pragmatic approach. And net zero isn't that. It is defining in law that the highest priority for the UK government is meeting an arbitrary carbon target, which will have no effect whatsoever on global warming, the thing it's designed to prevent, but will put up prices because everybody then pursues bad investment decisions like too many wind farms, rather than, say, going for nuclear power and making nuclear power cheaper, which would be a more affordable way to do decarbonisation. So the law is not on the side of Parliament in achieving its own objectives. What it does empower is small activist groups to sue the government, to sue firms, to say you cannot do this because it doesn't achieve this net zero goal, rather than prioritising affordability through the thing that the UK used to be good at, which is competition and markets.
What's your hunch on this, Andy, in terms of this becoming a potentially an even hotter political issue on the run-up to the next general election, whenever that might be? Some people say it will be 2029. Some of us believe it'll be a lot sooner. What's your kind of take on how much this matters to the electorate?
I don't think the finer details of what sort of power grid we have matter at all to the electorate, other than that when they see pylons, they tend to have a particularly enraged reaction locally, even if they don't care nationally. What will matter is this dividing line issue of net versus not. And on that, it looks very likely that it will change the way all of the parties are approaching the issue. The Conservative switch has just happened. It was in part driven by Reform switching first. Labour are moving. It is not the case that Labour as a whole and as a political movement are entirely wedded to net zero without exception. They're certainly pushing that line at the moment, but they also have a very strong worker base, and those workers, particularly as expressed through the trade union movement, are starting to say, hang on, we're losing jobs, we're losing skilled labour and getting nothing in return for what seems to be a middle-class metropolitan obsession. So there is some hope there that Andy Burnham will be looking at the feedback he's getting on the ground, particularly in the north, and thinking, actually, I need to be more pragmatic and less like Ed Miliband.
Yeah, particularly for a Prime Minister who's pegged himself on reducing the cost of living. Andy, really good to have you on. Thank you. That's Andy Mayer, energy analyst from the Institute of Economic Affairs. It's Talk. It's 20 minutes to midday. Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, alongside me. Before we take a couple more calls, Benedict, I mean, we know that the Conservatives have changed their position on net zero. We know the same, they take pretty much the same position now as Reform UK. I mean, politically, how important do you think it is for people as as an issue, the pursuit of net zero, or indeed scrapping net zero targets?
It was one of those things where when it was in the abstract, actually everybody, I say everybody, lots of people were in favour of it, because you ask the average person, do they want to live in a sort of a more environmentally friendly world? Of course they do. They want to live in a green and pleasant land where everything's fine. They don't want to live in some sort of, you know, post-industrial hellscape. But we weren't doing that, is the key thing. And it was a myth, and it was lying. The amount that we were polluting was also that. And the thing is, once it rubs up against the reality of an increased cost of living, and you juxtapose that with the end results of the pandemic and the war in Ukraine and the Middle East, and people's cost of living goes up and wages are down, you can't maintain it. That's the end result, and so you have to be practical about this.
All right, let's take some calls. Should we do some calls on pensions? You ready? You're girding your loins? This is Paul in Newport. Hello, Paul. Welcome to Talk.
Hello, Duncan. Hello, Bennett. How are you doing?
Well, thank you.
We're all good, thank you. What would you like to say, sir?
About the pensions, there was a report only a few weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago, that said for a retiree now, retire comfortably, it was the word comfortably, they'd need £34,750 a year income. Now, if you say the state pension is £12,000, that means you've got to have a private pension of the thick end of £24,000 a year, right?
Yep.
£2,000 a month. I don't know anyone whose private pension is going to pay out £500 a week, £2,000 a month. So if you say you're going to go for the pension, I'm not saying, you know, the government's going to go for the pension, effectively what you're saying is we know we're going to make people less comfortable. Because if you need 34,750 and you're not going to get it, you're going to be less comfortable. Now, what I can see coming down the track is a means-tested state pension. So if you've got a private pension that's paying you out, you know, like £30,000 a year, if you're lucky enough to have £30,000 a year, you won't get the full 12,000 state pension. You might get half of it, or 8% on a sliding scale. I don't, you know, I understand it. I know as much as I hear. I know there was another one on the radio the other day. You know, are we the sixth wealthiest nation on the planet? We're not. We're absolutely skint. We have no money at all. Okay. So I understand the need for us as a society and for governments of any colour to look at what we're spending the money on and say, right, there are things everyone's got to sort of give a bit. And the pensioners, and I'm close to it, I'm really close to it.
Paul, would you support means testing for the state pension in the future?
I would, but only because if you said, OK, then Alan Sugar doesn't get one because he's got a private pension of £1 million a year, he's out, OK? Yeah. It's all about where the measure starts, isn't it? So if all of a sudden they said, OK, then, well, the number was 34,750 to live comfortably. So if you're on 24 or 25 plus your 12, that puts you into the comfortable. I don't think it's fair if a government says, OK, then we know what the number is to be comfortable. We're going to pick a number whereby the means testing puts you into the uncomfortable bracket.
Understood. Listen, I'm going to move it on because I want to get someone else on, but thank you for your call. That's Paul in Newport. This one's in South Wales. It's Dennis. Hello, Den.
Hello there, Duncan. How are you?
Very good, sir. Give us your wisdom this morning.
I don't think it's wisdom because I certainly lost it this morning. Oh. I started work on a pit when I was 15.
Yeah.
All right? I worked until they closed in 84. Right. I went straight to a factory, a fortnight off to go on holidays, and I went straight into a factory where I worked till I was 65. Okay? So that's 50 years of work at least.
Yeah.
Right? Is that fella trying to say, I only caught the end of it, that I'm not entitled to a pension, or he doesn't think I'm entitled to a pension?
Well, I'll let him answer that. He's here. Benedict?
Well, no, that's not what I've said at all. And again, I would implore anybody to actually listen to what I've said. I'm saying people with assets worth over a certain amount. I've used the example of $1 million. It could be more, it could be less. But I'm saying that people with assets or private pensions worth a certain amount should not get the state pension, because the state pension should exist for people who are unable to prop themselves up. That is why it was, effectively set up as a contributory benefit. That's what it was there for. So everybody who's sort of calling in and saying, well, I only have the £12,000 a year and I've got nothing else and I've worked my whole life, I'm not sure what you're getting so upset about, because I've said, actually, it's wealthy people who should lose access to this in order to make sure that you get yours. This is the thing that I'm not quite getting. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. I'm going to say it again. It's about your actual assets when you hit retirement age. At a certain point, you don't need the state to come in and prop you up. And everybody's saying, oh, well, it's the principle of fairness. OK, fine. But what happens then when the entire state pension is removed because we can't afford it? Because on principle, we propped it up for people earning over, who have over £1 million in assets. That's not fair or sensible.
So there you are, Den. That's an explanation. Does it cut any mustard with you?
I only caught the end of the story, the idiot that was on at the end. And I thought he said to cut all pensions.
No, he didn't say cut all pensions, but I think that there's certainly an argument here that's been developing that some people believe it should be means tested, and if you have assets over a certain amount of money, and Benedict here used the example of £1 million, that you don't necessarily need the state pension. But I appreciate it's certainly a very emotive issue, particularly against a backdrop of people seeing money spent elsewhere that they don't agree with. Dennis in South Wales, thank you. Let's just do a few messages here. What have we got? This is Sandra from Essex. The government is very good at taking from those who have lived and worked here all their lives and giving millions, even billions, to people who just rock up, and those overseas, including foreign aid. It's absolutely disgusting. They're looking at people with over £1 million worth of assets. We will just emigrate and leave the festering asylum seekers to themselves. The country will become so degraded, only lowlives will live there, and we will become an Islamic state. Why are you laughing? That's still in Cambridge.
Because what kind of response to that? Oh, I've worked all my life, I've built this, that and the other, I'm proud of my country, I don't want my country to degrade, and so I'm going to show you all by leaving it and hope that it does dissolve into a hellscape. I mean, come on, what kind of a response is that? It doesn't seem... I don't think you mean that. I don't think you mean that at all.
This is Paul, who says Benedict is a typical Tory. I
was a communist a few minutes ago, so this is a great turn up for the books. I'm on a roller coaster today.
Benedict is a typical Tory full of bull. I've paid into state pension all my working life. I want my money going to foreign people who have never paid any national insurance ever, but will get a pension and benefits. What the cost of people who have never paid national insurance working in the black economy? I'm sorry about this. He's a toffee-nosed man.
Oh, well, that sounds delicious.
All right, keep your messages coming in. On text, it's 87222. Start your message with the word talk. As you've been hearing, plenty of calls, room for more, 0344 499 1000. You can call that number, you can WhatsApp that number with your message, or send a voice note. We're talking about whether or not the triple lock on the state pension is sustainable in the future, and also a little bit of chat as well around the worst place to drive in the United Kingdom. If you are listening to Talk this morning and you are a professional driver somewhere, love to get your thoughts on these 20-mile-per-hour speed limits, particularly in the city of Birmingham. It looks like there'll be a blanket 20-mile-per-hour limit outside all of the A roads. But up next, Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, is warning that Britain faces impending Russian attack over its support for Ukraine. We need to prepare. How serious is the threat, and what should we do? We'll get more on this from Elliot Wilson, Senior Fellow for National Security at the Coalition for Global Prosperity. We'll talk to him next here at Talk.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full touch, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just turned 10 minutes to midday. It's Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Duncan, in for Julia Hartley-Brewer for today only. Alex Phillips back here tomorrow morning from 10. Ian Collins here from 1 o'clock this afternoon. In the meantime, let's look at this somewhat, well, some might say scaremongering headline. I don't know. We'll get a view on this in a second. This is the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has been warned that Britain faces Russian retaliation over its support for Ukraine. Security experts are telling the Prime Minister to be prepared for, quote, a direct response from Putin. The Kremlin is set to target the UK, sources said, after miscalculating Mr. Burnham's commitment to Kyiv. That's the headline. Let's get a reaction to this from Elliot Wilson, Senior Fellow for National Security at the Coalition for Global Prosperity, who joins us this morning here on Talk. Hello, Elliot.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, to get the wisdom and knowledge from yourself. Just give us your initial reaction to this when you first heard it.
I think it's a combination of two things. I think, firstly, the Prime Minister is making sure that people understand what's at stake here. But I think the other thing is we need not to underestimate, in a sense, the threat that has already been posed to us by Russia for some years. I mean, you can think back to almost 10 years to the Salisbury poisoning in 2018. We are in a state of something that is not peace with conflict with Russia, and we have been for nearly a decade. Vladimir Putin is not completely irrational, but he has had a habit during the Ukraine war of making threats which he doesn't then follow through, most obviously over dark words about using tactical nuclear weapons. It is possible that they will try to retaliate directly against Britain. We've seen that the Iranians have done that recently when they managed to shut down a power plant for 4 days earlier this year. But I think we need to maintain a balance between being aware of the risk, which I think a lot of people maybe aren't fully, but also not overstating it or overstating its novelty.
And let's dig in a little bit deeper to the kind of attack that may happen, because I'm just aware that some people hearing the headline or hearing our chat might start to panic and think, well, does that mean bullets or missiles? You rightly have diluted that a little bit. But let's talk about potentially what Russia could do. Is it a case of more cyber warfare? Is it about more hacks? Is it about trying to damage infrastructure?
Certainly, I mean, cyber warfare is very high up the Kremlin's to-do list, and that is going on anyway, and that might well intensify. We've also seen considerable Russian interest around the undersea data links between us and continental Europe. That could escalate potentially, and we know how vulnerable those are. We've also seen, things like using proxies to cause arson and other offences like that in this country. So Russia has a broad range of responses because, of course, it doesn't abide by international domestic laws. So, it has a range of options which it can pursue, and it can pursue all of them. But we're also in a situation where we're already seeing, the cost of living is going up, shortages of some materials because of what's going on in the Gulf, and we're in a sort of multi-crisis situation, none of which is critical yet, but coming together, they'll make life potentially very uncomfortable.
We've seen pictures over the last couple of days of Andy Burnham in Kyiv talking to Zelensky, even strumming a guitar with a Ukrainian soldier. I think he's very clearly naming his colours to the Ukrainian mast, if you like. Just give us a sense of the UK's current relationship with Russia, because I was reading the other day that the Russian ambassador to the United Kingdom has got on a plane and gone home.
Yes, Russia withdrew its ambassador quite recently and hasn't yet named a replacement. Whether it will or not is not clear. Whether it'll leave somebody more junior as their chargé d'affaires, we're not clear. I mean, Russia is always testing both NATO and the UK as a member of NATO. What Vladimir Putin is very good at is pushing us right up to the limits to see where those limits lie. And we've seen that with, drones entering Polish airspace, Romanian airspace. They're very good at pushing to see where our pressure points are and how we respond. And there have been times, unfortunately, when we've not responded as vigorously as we might. But I think this is probably another part of that to an extent. They're seeing how much diplomatic pressure and how much fright, essentially, they can put on us to warn us away away from helping Ukraine, which I think and hope won't happen. I mean, the idea of Vladimir Putin accusing the UK of escalating a war which Vladimir Putin started and which Vladimir Putin has committed war crimes and crimes against humanity is darkly humorous, but you know, that's the Kremlin line. So it's all about finding out where our limits are and how great our resolve is, and we need to make sure that we're not pushed around.
Well, I'm interested in where the limits may lie because, again, we hear about the shadow Russian fleet being escorted by Russian warships potentially through British territorial waters, and we know that's been happening. We've seen the pictures. Will there come a point, will a line be crossed where Burnham will have to say, do you know what, we need to do something about that? Because that is rattling the sabre towards Britain, isn't it?
It very much is, and you know, other countries in Europe have stopped and boarded vessels from the Russian Shadow Fleet. So Keir Starmer, unfortunately, in a slightly characteristic way, talked a good talk about what we were going to do and how robust our response would be. Yeah. We didn't actually do anything. But you know, I think when Belgium has stopped a Russian ship in the Channel and boarded it, then if the UK isn't willing to do that, there is a real issue. But also we're very stretched in terms of our naval capabilities, in terms of monitoring these ships. So it is quite difficult, but we've seen the spy ship Yantar has been in our coastal waters several times, and we've had to warn it off as best we can. Nobody hopes for a confrontation, but we need to be aware that it is possible. And while we would do everything we can to minimise that likelihood, there needs to be a recognition that it may be the only choice at some point, that we do have some kind of, whether it's boarding part of the Russian Shadow Fleet or warning off a Russian aircraft or something, that we do come to say that we do have our limits and that the Russians need to be aware of them.
Elliot, I'm just going to bring in Benedict Spence, who's alongside me this morning here at Talk, Conservative commentator. Benedict, I mean, do you think that Burnham needs to be a bit tougher with this kind of sabre rattling that we experience almost weekly, if not daily, from the Russians?
I mean, what does that mean, tougher? This is the difficulty, is that
what would you do? What would you advise him?
Right now, I think the most important thing is that Britain spends a proper amount of money on its armed forces, that it reallocates resources from elsewhere. And this, I'm afraid, goes back into the conversation, you know, linked to what we were talking about earlier. How can it be that we are spending quite so much on the welfare budget or on interest payments or indeed on pensions or anything else when the first duty of any nation is its own defence? You can't actually really help the Ukrainians to the same extent that we would like to if we are still running around going, oh, good Lord, the submarines don't work, we haven't got enough people to go on the ships. That's a bit of a joke. So whilst, you know, it's very important, obviously, that we stand with the Ukrainians, that we're very vociferous and we give them whatever support we can, you have to recognise, actually, that you exist in a world in which you can or cannot be influenced by other powers, depending on how seriously you take your own defence. This is something that the Ukrainians discovered, sadly, themselves. If you don't take this sort of thing seriously, there are negative consequences for that.
OK, Elliot, a quick final question to you. The Cabinet Office has issued some guidance about ways people can prepare for potentially attacks from hostile states, stocking up on tin food, etc., etc. Is this just a matter of course, or have they done this, do you think, because the threat is real and genuine?
I think there's a real and genuine threat. I think we need to be careful about sort of sensationalising it, you know, it being like the Cold War, but we also need to be aware that we are under greater threat probably than we have been for 50-odd years. So the threat is real. We need to take it seriously, but we need to take it in proportion.
Elliot Wilson, Senior Fellow for National Security at the Coalition for Global Prosperity. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. And if you're watching and listening to Talk at the moment, do check out Elliot's work on the Spectator magazine and their website, and also his Substack, because you learn stuff. I've learned stuff that I never knew. Mind you, that's not too hard these days. It's Duncan in for Julie at Hartley-Brewer. I'm here through until 1 o'clock this afternoon. What can I tell you? I can tell you after midday, we talk about migrant crime, Birmingham's moves to become England's first 20-mile-per-hour city, Labour opening the door to banning cousin marriage, and Labour MPs who want to push Burnham to back voting reform in 100 days. All of that with political guru, the former political editor of The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh, here after midday on the home of common sense. This is Talk, as Wednesday morning becomes Wednesday afternoon.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good to have you along. Welcome. Wednesday afternoon, I'm Duncan Barkes. It is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm here through until 1 o'clock. Ian Collins here after 1. Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator alongside me, upsetting the nation's pensioners. We'll get more of these calls on the air between now and 1. A lot of people calling in about your view that we need to scrap potentially the triple lock, or at least means test the triple lock on the state pension. Are you still going to hang it on £1 million in assets?
Why not? Unless somebody else can give me a viable reason why there's a different number. See, I'm happy to negotiate, whereas it seems a lot of the nation's pensioners are not.
0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes, and also your WhatsApp messages regarding that. If you're a little bit old school, you can text. The text number is 87222. You need to start your message with the word talk. We're also kicking around the war on motorists in this country. I see it as a war, as we hear that Birmingham is set to become England's first 20-mile-per-hour city. So apart from the A roads, you've got the local council in Brum that used to be a great motoring city. The council just want to implement 20-mile-per-hour speed limits everywhere. Do they work? I mean, look, I think most of us are quite sound on this when it comes to having a 20-mile-per-hour limit outside of school, for example, during, you know, school days and chucking out time and school starting and stuff. But, you know, you see Bristol, you saw it in Wales, you certainly see it in London, you see it in parts of Brighton, elsewhere. 20-mile-per-hour speed limits that are enforceable by cameras are like 2 o'clock in the morning. What is the point? And many of you suggested today, you just see it as the motorist becoming a cash cow for local councils. So your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Let's look at some of today's big political stories. We'll pick them over in the company of political legend, guru Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of the Sun newspaper, who joins us. Good afternoon, Trevor.
Hello, Duncan.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. First off, your thoughts on what's being pitched as an attempted cover-up of the extent of crimes committed by foreigners. We have families of the victims of murders and sex assaults by migrants have said to ministers, look, we need to see this data. The Telegraph newspaper reporting that the government is trying to prevent the publication of data revealing the full scale of foreign offending in England and Wales between 2018 to 2024. Now, I know for a fact that all our Talk viewers and listeners will be looking at this just going, how dare the government try and not let this information come out? What's your take on this?
Well, it's an absolute fact that you simply cannot find out which migrants are more likely to commit a crime in this country than others. And in fact, it's quite hard to get a breakdown of any migrant crime figures because I think for many years now, this isn't something new. They simply haven't kept the records. Now, they put all sorts of excuses up, like the cost of keeping the statistics, but it's rubbish. This is an attempt to avoid scrutiny of a growing and more visible problem, which has become, I think, on the verge of a crisis in some areas, especially with the spread of these migrant hostels and houses of multiple occupancy across the country.
This is the bit that I don't understand, which is we know these crimes take place. I suspect there is a mindset in certain government departments / local authorities, which is we can't have this data out there because it might fuel tensions or whatever. But fundamentally, people have a right to know. And I see this as a dereliction of duty on behalf of the government and indeed local councils and indeed police services, police forces as well. You know, as a dad of a teenage daughter or a young girl in her 20s and stuff, we need to know about this kind of stuff.
Yes, I think the idea that we have a right to know is anathema to this Labour government and particularly to some elements within it. I mean, this information could very easily be available. It is being denied to us because of what they claim is a threat to the community coherence. Well, that is absurd for a start, because we still need to know whether some members of some communities are more likely to be rapists and thieves and members of organised crime gangs than others. And of course, they will say, as a matter of equivalence, that we have our own white rapists and murderers and all the rest of it, which is true. But proportionally, even those figures we do have, which are pretty meagre, point to the fact that certain groups are more likely to be offenders on some of the most hideous crimes than others. And unless you know, you cannot comment on it. This actually is an inhibitor on free speech. If you don't know the facts, you have no grounds for saying what you know is true.
Do you think the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, gets this? Do you think he fundamentally does know that people like you and I and our listeners and viewers this afternoon think we have a right to have access to this information? Does he get it, Trevor?
I think he knows perfectly well. The simple fact is, though, that he is ruled by his backbenchers, and the majority he has is not his to command. And those who are really rigorous about keeping us in the dark on certain areas of publicly available information are wielding the bigger hand here. And I mean, let's not beat about the bush. This is a problem which mainly involves certain communities, as did the mainly Pakistani rape gangs that were and still are operating across the whole of this country. And for 20 years, nothing was done about it. And most of that was because everything was kept in the dark because of the community.
I'd like to get your thoughts this afternoon on our exclusive documentary here at Talk that was put together by the journalist Isabel Oakeshott, also a journalist called Christian Drogan, who spent weeks posing as a British criminal who was on the run in Calais before boarding a UK-bound dinghy. This documentary premiered on Talk yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock. It's had hundreds of thousands of views in the last 24 hours on YouTube. And it just shows how our undercover reporter was able to cross the channel in a small boat whilst posing as a migrant, and he claims, and you can see it, French police are giving smugglers literally free lifts back to the camps. I don't think any of this will surprise us, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on, again, whether or not you think Burnham truly gets the mood of the nation regarding this.
Well, this is a terrific documentary, and all credit to Talk for getting someone aboard one of these boats and revealing exactly what's going on, not just in the migrant people smuggling gangs, but on the French police on the coast, on those beaches, doing precious little to stop them. I mean, frankly, I believe, and I'm sure most people do, that the French simply usher them out because they don't want them in France.
Yeah.
As for Andy Burnham, he is not stupid. He is well aware of the fact that immigration is edging up and has long been near the top of all of our concerns. When you take away the cost of living and individual problems in life, such as petty crime and so on, cost of living top of the list, healthcare, so on, immigration is there at the top. And it is becoming increasingly the point on which people will make up their minds at the next election.
He seems to me, or rather this Labour government seems to me to have given up, because there seems to be this sense now where we had Andy Burnham himself saying, well, people in more affluent areas of the UK are going to have to take their fair share of these migrants or asylum seekers. We have a Home Office, as we debated long and hard, rightly so here on Talk last week, a few days ago, a Home Office issuing leaflets telling people who come to this country illegally not to rape people, not sexually abuse people. It all seems to be, the focus is like, well, we can't do much about this, so what we need to do is just tell people you need to take your fair share of migrants, and by the way, we've done some leaflets to tell these people not to break the laws of this country. There seems to me to be this kind of, this climate of simply going, well, this is the situation now, it's not going to change.
Well, I think that is the situation, and I think it is unlikely to change as long as we have a Labour government in office, and that's going to be for at least another 3 years, and maybe longer if we have a snap election and Labour gets a majority. I mean, look, we are opening these former military barracks and turning them into basically holiday camps. The only thing that's missing is a Butlins redcoat. I mean, they're demanding more facilities. They've got all sorts of sports facilities, gyms. They've got restaurant sort of area, eating areas. As I say, all they need is the redcoats to come along and help them enjoy themselves with karaoke. So this is the situation. They are here. Many people in the Labour Party, especially those who are on the pro-Gaza front, are very happy for them to be here, and the more the merrier as far as they are concerned. They will do nothing whatsoever to not just send them back or stop them permanently, they will encourage them. And their view is that there should be open borders. And with those sort of backbenchers, some of them, by the way, threatening to stand independently as pro-Gaza members of parliament at the next election, I think that Burnham himself finds his hands tied.
I'd like your view on something else that appeared once again. This is the idea of banning cousin marriage. Now, we know in the past that Richard Holden, Conservative MP, currently the Shadow Transport Secretary, previously in a private member's bill last year failed to get first cousin marriage in the UK banned after being blocked by the Labour government at the time led by Sir Keir Starmer. We read this morning that Labour is considering whether to back legislation to ban it. The Ministry of Justice acknowledging that there were serious concerns over cousin marriage and said it would look at whether outlawing the practice was the best way to tackle it. I mean, I read this morning and I thought, well, has Burnham really got the bottle to do this?
It's a big test, isn't it? But there are many, many big tests Burnham is facing, and the big question marks about whether he will even tackle, let alone deal with them. So, yeah, I mean, consanguinity has been a problem which people have known about throughout the world for centuries. I mean, dating back 500, 1,000 years, they've known that there are problems of cousin marriage. And of course, in some communities, the children that are produced by cousin marriage then marry other cousins. So you're actually increasing the stock of people who are basically from the same bloodline. And even straightforward two cousins marrying have twice the likelihood of inheriting genetic disorders from their parents, twice the possibility of non-consanguinity marriages. So what are we doing? We're imperiling the health and safety of future generations. And we are also putting on the health service an enormous burden of the cost of dealing with that problem. Why are we allowing this? It's not for the benefit of anybody except a custom, a culture, maybe even a religion, but not for the wider community.
It's 12:15. It's Wednesday afternoon. It's Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Duncan Barkes, talking to Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun. Trevor, we also read today that we have almost 100 Labour MPs supporting a bid for a new national commission regarding electoral reform in this country. Now, this might be of interest to particularly smaller political parties like the Green Party or indeed Reform UK. We go down the route of proportional representation. It might certainly allow them to get a greater number of MPs. What's your thoughts regarding this? Do you think Andy Burnham will back voting reform seriously? Because potentially it could damage the number of Labour MPs in the future.
In the future, maybe, but once you've got proportional representation in, you have virtually excluded the possibility of one single party taking an outright majority, whether it's Labour or Tory or anyone.
Yeah.
And then we are doomed, as they are on the continent of Europe, to a perpetual series of coalitions. And coalitions are weak government and often corrupt government as a result, because small parties in a government which has a small majority have the whip hand. They are the tail that wags the dog. In the end, if a vote is close, their handful of votes will be the ones that decide. And they can use that leverage to obtain all sorts of advantages, as they do in Europe and indeed once upon a time used to do in Australia. So, you know, this is a problem which, once Labour implements it, it's a problem for all future governments.
Yes, potentially it's Pandora's box. Let me just wrap up our time this afternoon here on Talk. One of the things that's been dominating much of our conversation has been the issue of the triple lock on the state pension. Alongside me this afternoon is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. Just so you're fully aware, Trevor, Benedict getting a lot of flack. He's very clear we can't afford to continue to have the triple lock on the state pension in the United Kingdom. We've had some really good calls on the station in the last couple of hours regarding this on both sides of the issue. And you look at it, you look at our increasing national debt, which the OBR will tell you is knocking on £3 trillion. People say, well, look, this country has got a lot of debt. We need to cut our cloth, if you like, more efficiently, and we can't sustain the triple lock. I mean, politically, we know the Conservative Party have agreed to maintain it, Reform UK as well. If you're going to be cynical, you might take the view that, you know, this is a bung to the older voter. I say that with respect. Do you think the triple lock on the state pension is sustainable?
No, absolutely not. It was a major error bringing it in the first place. God knows why they did. But, you know, this is basically a bribe to the voters of my generation. The same with the winter fuel allowance, and the same with freedom passes in London, which cost a fortune. People like me and many, many others, hundreds of thousands of people, should not be getting free travel, while ordinary people and students and people who have left university, young people on the first rung of the employment ladder, have to pay full fare, basically, to subsidize us. And that's what all of these bungs, as you call them, they're bribes. And once you impose the bribe, it's almost impossible to retrieve it, because people like it. I like having a freedom pass. I don't particularly care about the winter fuel allowance. It's just one of Gordon Brown's little attempts to skewer the Tory party. But there are many subsidies for older people. However, if the money that we get for nothing in the way of bribes were spent properly, we would probably volunteer to get rid of it. But all it does is go into the coffers of people like the Mayor of London, so-called Sir Sadiq Khan, who will squander it on hundreds of millions of pounds worth of roadworks to slow traffic and make life miserable for most.
Trevor, always a joy to get your thoughts. Thank you. Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun, here on Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. I've got some breaking news for you here. This is concerning the former West Midlands Police Chief Constable Craig Guilford. I can tell you he's been investigated by the police watchdog for gross misconduct over his role in a ban on supporters of Israeli club Maccabi Tel Aviv attending a Europa League game at Birmingham's Villa Park. This has just been announced courtesy of the Independent Office for Police Conduct. So the former West Mids Police Chief Constable Craig Guilford being investigated by the police watchdog over that particular issue. I also have, if you're a royal fan, further breaking news: the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are arriving back in the United Kingdom today. Hooray! According to the BBC. 0344 499 1000. Why are you laughing, Benedict Spence? Do you think the bunting will be out at the airport?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there's going to be fireworks. There's going to be people with those old-style football rattles that you used to have, that sort of thing. People with the rosettes. It's going to be a real jamboree.
Even some street parties maybe on the hoof.
Absolutely.
Some ad hoc street parties.
And cake and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. I can't wait to take part.
No, me neither. I shall be there with my vol au vent and my Union flag hat on. Just to recap that breaking news, if you're interested in royal affairs, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are arriving back in the UK today. That's the very latest we have. This is Talk.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, come on! Ready, full touch, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Duncan Barkes' Talk, the home of common sense. Alongside me is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, as we continue to wrestle with the issue of the state pension and the future of the triple lock. Should it stay? Should it go? 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes and your WhatsApp messages. You can also text. The number is 87222. That's the text number. Start your message with the word talk. Let me just do some of these messages coming in. Forgive me. Been a little bit tardy with the messages, so let me just go through some of them here. What do we got? This one is from Jane. We pensioners have worked 50 plus years paying taxes for our retirement. To be taxed again is a complete insult. My relative paid to a private pension for his wife. Now he died. She is taxed again. It's a disgrace, says Jane. Elsewhere, this is Val, who says, you talk about dropping the triple lock for pensioners who have rightly paid into the system all their lives. Instead, the government should be looking closely at people claiming benefits for ridiculous imaginary illnesses, and instead of giving a 6% rise, they should be reducing the benefits for those people to get off their backside and get a job like the rest of us older people who have worked all our lives, and a lot of us are still working at the age of 70, says Val, who's listening in the West Country. A few more here. This is Karen. Tax pensioners, we are already taxed in the same way as if we are working. The government pension may be paid tax-free, but as soon as your income exceeds your tax allowance, then you pay tax at the usual rate. Why not? We do not pay NIC. That is our only discount. So rich or not, we still pay our fair share of tax. The triple lock must remain. It is the only fair way to measure our yearly increase. The idiot on now... Sorry, Benedict.
Well, I'm not on right now, so
well,
now I am.
Yeah. Says we didn't pay enough. I had to pay in for an extra 6 years more than expected as they moved the retirement age to 66. And I'll just do one more. This is Colleen, who says, I'm tired of them always looking at pensioners to fund the declining economy. If they want to save money, how about taking away some of the freebies given out to our unwelcome guests? I.e. why does Weatherfield Barracks need 17 minibuses on standby to run them around when by rights they should be locked up and locked in? Colin is in Milton Keynes. Hello, Colin.
Hello, good morning. Good afternoon even, sorry.
Yeah, what would you like to say?
Right, yes, just ringing up because some of what Benedict says. Firstly, let me start then saying I agree it does need to be looked at. I do think it does need to be looked at, but I think it needs to be looked at as a longer-term thing. Putting a limit on it when people have been encouraged to save for retirement, knowing the fact that there's not going to be enough people to do it and have enough money to pay for their own retirements, they want to encourage people to save money, which they did through pension benefits and things like that, where you get tax relief. But if you do penalise them when they get to a certain age, let's say you've got £1 million house and a small pension, and then you have to sell it, you'll then get taxed. Capital gains tax on the house for selling it, so you're getting taxed again. So yet again, what you're doing is you're penalising the people that have bothered to save and look after themselves or try to look after themselves, which the governments have done to try and encourage them to save for their retirement, and not really maybe looking at the other end of the scale where the people who've, let's put the word, spent it all rather than up the wall,
spaffed it,
and rather than the ones who've actually bothered to try and save. So I think you need to put something in place, but I don't think that's the solution. It's got to be looked at as a long-term solution. So people have got to start saving at a lot longer age for 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
So, Colin, do you think we need a political party who's prepared to start laying the foundations and kind of say, look, we need to start looking at this, maybe we do it on a, I don't know, almost like a sliding scale? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, putting something away forward. Look, there's not going to be a pension there in 20, 30 years' time, so you need to start putting away. They tried to do it with the nest pensions and things like that, but they didn't go far enough. The problem is you've got an open bucket. And one thing British people are is they don't like things to be unfair. Now, the ones that aren't millionaires aspire to become millionaires, and they don't want to get there and then get taxed to death. So you want to inspire them to try and go that way. All you're going to do is encourage people not to save for their own retirement if you put something at the end of it. It's got to be done as a long-term thing. And when being fair, you've got to look at civil servants as well, because civil servants who have an open bucket fund, because we pay our taxes, go straight to pay their pensions. That's getting bigger and bigger. So they're not paying towards their pensions. We are paying their pensions.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, Benedict, could that work for you? This kind of like sliding scale is not radical enough.
I mean, it's interesting. You're not the first person to bring up the disconnect between private and public sector pensions. That's certainly something that has to be addressed. Though, again, we agree that's a cohort of people who shouldn't be getting quite as much. It's not about giving more to other people. It's about saying to those people you shouldn't be getting quite as much. But I'm also broadly in favour of having lower taxes across the board. Things like capital gains tax or stamp duty, I don't think should be being levied. I certainly don't think you should be levying stamp duty on, say, a pensioner who's looking to downsize and give some of their money, say, to a younger member of their family so they can get on the housing ladder. It seems very counterintuitive to me to continue to tax those people. And I am broadly of the opinion, having had a look at the laugh curve, of thinking, well, if you do reduce the taxes, it actually has long-term beneficial effects. So I'm actually broadly in favour of saying, yes, pensioners should pay less tax. I'm not got a problem with that because you need to incentivise them to have the money to spend. But nonetheless, if you're talking about sort of, inconveniencing or harming people, targeting them, if you don't do it to everybody across the board, it disproportionately falls on people who are currently working. Younger people are already taxed at the highest burden in the post-Napoleonic War era. And we're not even at war right now. It's an insane amount of money that is being taken away from those people who will never be able, therefore, to put away money into private pensions, let alone, the state pension. They won't get the state pension when they get to that age. They can't get on the property ladder, so they don't have the houses to sell to live off in the first place. That's why something here has to change.
All right, Colin in Milton Keynes, great call. I'm just going to squeeze in Chris is in Essex. Hello, Chris. Welcome to Talk.
Hello, Duncan. Thank you very much. Good to listen to you this afternoon. Hello, Benedict.
Hello. Go on, Ed. The floor is yours.
I think there's a couple of things that we're missing here. The purpose of the triple lock is to protect the value of the state pension against inflation. If you get rid of the triple lock, then that £1,000 a year that your state pensioner is getting will gradually decrease over time, and the buying power will become such that they can't afford to put food on the table or pay for their energy. So that's the importance of the triple lock, and that's why the pension does go up, because of inflation. And I think the other thing that we're missing here is, unlike civil servants who have a defined benefit scheme, which is a big pot of money, and they get a defined payment every month for their pension, most working people are on defined contribution schemes. Now, that's a pile of money that is invested normally in things like the stock market or government gilts and bonds. Now, that is not necessarily a stable place. So when you're looking at means testing, I could have a pension of £1 million today, but if there's a major market fluctuation or economic crash tomorrow, I could be down £200,000, £300,000. So how do you means test that? Do you means test it every week, every month, every year? And
all right, let me just ask you to pause there, Chris. Have you got an answer to that?
I mean, that's the nature of investing in anything in general, is that one year you can be down, but next year you might be up. So if you're in a particularly difficult period in time, it's not actually beyond the realms of possibility that a government might say, right, this year there's a moratorium on this, because actually everybody's lost a certain amount of value. But the nature, of course, of the stock market is it does tend to recover. In fact, if you sit back and you take a look at it, even at the very worst crashes of 20, 25%, usually within 18 months, it's back above where it was. So these are temporary blips, and that's the nature of that. But on the point about the whole idea of the triple lock being about keeping pace with inflation or above inflation, as is this case, where are the protections for working people whose wages are not keeping up with inflation? So we're turning around and saying, well, pensioners should be able to be above inflation. But what about the people who are actually going to work every day, are contributing not only supposedly to their own pensions, but to the pensions of those who are retired as well? They, as it is, are having their standards of living degrade. And the entire time that this is happening, the cost of getting on the housing ladder, of having children, of having all the the things that we were told you will get as part of society is getting further and further out of reach. That's all this is. It's about making it a more even playing field.
All right, Chris and Essex, thank you for your call. We've had so many good calls on this over the last 2.5 hours. Some good calls with some good ideas as well. We'll try and squeeze a few more in between now and 0344 499 1000. The breaking news of earlier, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are arriving back in the UK today. We'll get reaction regarding that from Talk's very own Kevin O'Sullivan inside the next 20 minutes. But up next, union activists are calling on Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, to scrap what they describe as dangerous new trans guidance. We'll get a reaction on this next, here at Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
25 minutes to 1 on this Wednesday afternoon is Talk, the home of common sense. A little bit more breaking news of a political nature. If you're a political anorak or a political wonk and you listen to Talk, William Clouston has resigned as leader of the Social Democrat Party, the SDP. He's announced this via social media platform X and has included a letter as to his reasons why. Certainly William has appeared on Talk in the past as a political commentator and also as a leader of a political party. And today he's announced his resignation as leader of the SDP. I'm Duncan Barkes. I'm here through until 1. Ian Collins here after 1. Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, alongside me between now and then. We will get a few more calls on between now and 1 regarding the triple lock on the state pension. Should it stay? Should it go? Also, some reaction regarding the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who are arriving back in the UK today. Get your bunting at the ready. In the meantime, union activists are calling on the Prime Minister to scrap what they describe as dangerous new trans guidance. They brand it regressive and dangerous. This is new transgender guidance on single-sex spaces. The statutory code of practice, which took effect earlier this month, states that access to single-sex spaces should be based on a person's biological sex rather than their gender identity. Someone who's got a view on this is Fiona Macanina, Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, who joins us on Talk. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. What's your initial reaction to these activists pushing for Burnham to scrap this guidance?
Well, let's just look at how we got here. Okay. So we have clear laws in this country that say you cannot discriminate against people on most grounds, but there are a few exceptions. And one of the exceptions is that sometimes separating out the sexes is in everyone's interest and everyone's benefit. And that's obvious. It's commonplace. And everywhere we go, every day, we take advantage of that lawful sex discrimination, if you like. When you go into a changing room or a public toilet, when you do sport, and more important things too, like prisons and domestic violence shelters and all of that. So for a long time, everyone has understood that sex matters in life and it matters in everyday life. But these campaigners, trans campaigners, managed to persuade employers that a man who says he's a woman can be counted as a woman. And that's been what they pushed for a number of years. And what's happening now is the dial's been reset back to common sense. Women like us and other groups like For Women Scotland have been campaigning and fighting for years to get the proper recognition of the law, and that is that you shouldn't discriminate, but sometimes sex matters, and there's only one way to be female, and that's to be born female. The unions at least are recognising that, because when they're asking for the law to be changed, they're at least recognising what the law currently says. But it's the law that most people would defend. There's nothing unpopular about the idea that sometimes we separate men and women for the sake of everyone's privacy and dignity, and particularly for women and girls' safety.
When you heard about the, as one report describes them, the activists in unions pushing for Burnham to scrap this new guidance, what was your initial response and thinking behind it? Because you've been good enough to explain how we got here. I think many talk viewers and listeners will think that this issue was finally put to bed, yet this battle seems to just be ongoing.
Yeah, and you're quite right. It's not the guidance that determines the law. The law was written in the Equality Act 2010, which was produced by a Labour government. And it was nothing new then, really. It was just a consolidation of previous equality law, sex discrimination law, and so on. So these activists are really barking up the wrong tree, because the law is clear. And if they really want something different, it's no use scrapping the guidance. They actually need the government to decide to amend the Equality Act. That's not in anyone's interests. You know, most people recognise, we know our own sex. We know that the polite thing, the respectful thing to do is, for the sake of other people and their dignity, is to respect sex-based spaces. So that was our response. At least the unions understand that the law here is what matters, and they can scrap the guidance if they like. It won't change a thing.
Just for some context for people who are listening to our chat, a motion is to be voted on at the Trades Union Congress TUC conference next month, claims the guidelines represent, quote, a regressive and dangerous interpretation of the law. The motion put forward by the LGBT plus group unequivocally condemns the guidance introduced by the Equality and Human Rights Commission, the EHRC, as a direct attack on the LGBT plus equality. If delegates pass the motion, the official policy of the TUC will be to call on all of its 47 affiliate unions, including unions such as GMB, Unite and Unison, to challenge exclusionary guidance. I mean, potentially, if this motion is passed, this has massive ramifications for the public sector, doesn't it? And indeed local authorities.
Yes, and for everyone who works in those places where they can reasonably expect their union to protect them and to protect their rights at work, this motion is really saying the women who are members of these unions will not be protected because there are some men who say they're women, and the motion says their appetite, their desire to be recognised as women and be in women's spaces is all that matters. So it's a pretty appalling state of affairs. When a union like Unison, for example, 2/3 of its members are women. So I very much doubt that they will adopt this motion, but I think it's a reflection of how the law has been misunderstood for years, because nothing has actually changed. The guidance now just reflects both common sense and reality and the law as it's always been. And what we needed was to end the practice of employers and unions saying, if someone identifies as the other sex, we've all got to play along with that. Well, we don't, because it comes at the expense particularly of the privacy and safety of females.
How do you think Andy Burnham should react to these activists pushing for him to scrap this guidance on single-sex spaces?
It'd be great to see a bit of clear leadership on this, to say, look, come on, we all know what sex we are. The law hasn't changed. It was a Labour government that brought in this law, the Equality Act, in 2010. Let's just get on with it. What activists for people who don't want to use their own sex toilets and changing rooms and so on, what they should be campaigning for is third spaces, is alternatives. They should not be campaigning to let some men into women's facilities. And as long as that's what they're doing, I think the government and Andy Burnham should give it short shrift.
Very much appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you, Fiona. That's Fiona McNanina, Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters. Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. This is interesting, isn't it? Because we know we have local authorities, particularly in London, left-wing London councils, announcing they will resist the new guidelines on single-sex spaces. They've not faced any sanctions from the EHRC. We now hear that this motion is going to be put to the TUC conference, and if it is passed, that's 47 affiliate unions who potentially could ignore the guidance. Is this a looming headache for Burnham, or do you think this motion won't get off the ground?
I think that it is a bit of a headache, because actually if they decide to push very hard on this, they can create trouble for them.
Yeah.
The issue is it's such a non-issue in the grand scheme of things. It's very clear what the guidance says. It's very clear where the public lie on all of this. And it is a real just political bugbear of a certain wing of the left that to this day I still don't understand quite how it is that we're still putting up with this nonsense. It's, as I say, very clear what the guidance is. And if he decides to allow local councils, forget the unions, if he decides to allow local councils, local authorities to just ignore the law, to ignore the guidance, what actually message does that send to the rest of the country, that you can just go, I don't care, it doesn't appeal to me?
The National Union of Students has said its members should resist the guidance and has sent a booklet to members urging them to put up trans rights posters on toilet doors.
Honestly, the continued existence of the National Union of Students just amazes me. I mean, there's one body in the United Kingdom that you should not listen to on almost anything, that you can pretty much guarantee will get wrong. It is this strange experimental organisation of people who have yet to graduate, have not got real jobs, have not got real life experience, and all have mental health disorders.
But Benedict, if we didn't have the NUS, where would the new wave of Labour politicians come from? I mean, Wes Streeting was famously president of the NUS. It's like a training ground.
It's a bit like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We're going to have a national philosophers' strike. Who will that inconvenience? You don't mind about that. It'll hurt. That's the National Union of Students right there.
All right, you want to pick up on that at all? 0344 499 1000, the number here at Talk for your calls, your voice notes and your WhatsApp messages. I'm making a pledge now. We will get a few more calls regarding pensions and the triple lock on before 1. Can we do that? I'm just aware that quite a few people are here. But up next, Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. About 10 minutes ago, I said they're arriving back in the UK today. They have landed at Birmingham Airport. So now they're going to have to endure the 20-mile-per-hour speed limits around Brum to get out of Birmingham Airport in the West Midlands and go who knows where. We'll get a view on this from Kevin O'Sullivan, Talk presenter, next.
Go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was dipping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fence, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, what a roller coaster ride if you're a royal fan we've had over the last 20 minutes. We learnt earlier here on Talk that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were due to arrive in the United Kingdom today. We've just discovered inside the last 10 minutes they have landed at Birmingham Airport. So just in time for lunch. We're talking about Harry and Meghan. We know that Prince Archie, who's 7, and Princess Lilibet, who's 5, will start at a British school next week at the start of the autumn term. Let's get a view on this from Kevin O'Sullivan, Talk presenter. Afternoon, Kev.
Hi, Duncan. How you doing?
Well, I'm all right, but I'm very disappointed you're not waving your union flag there. You haven't got the bunting out. You don't have a hat on. You're not celebrating with a glass of Prosecco.
Well, you know, Duncan's mate, who knew? They're pretty clever, these two. They're not coming into Heathrow. They conned us all by secreting themselves into the backwater of Birmingham Airport. They're so clever, aren't they? That's put one over on the media. Well done to the Sussexes. And a nation rejoices. They're back. Brilliant. I'll tell you which nation is rejoicing. It's America. Their media has been going over the top, going, wow, get rid of us. Our nightmare is over. They're going. Yeah. So America's loss is Britain's loss. The gruesome twosome are back. Oh, my God.
It is so tiresome, this, isn't it? And we've got more and more of this to come.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is just the beginning. I mean, God knows the next few weeks and months are going to be an ongoing turbulent nightmare. We still don't really know why they've come back. My personal theory, they've hit the financial wall. They're pretty much broke, and they've come back for Harry to hand out the begging bowl to his dad and say, Daddy, you need to bail me out. Also, Duncan, this is big, actually. This is very serious. There is proper word that Harry's long-running visa battle in America to be allowed to live there has come to an end, and he has been defeated insofar as the American State Department is apparently on the verge of making public his visa application form on which he is alleged to have lied and said he didn't ever take drugs. Now, if that is made public, that will be hugely embarrassing for him. And if it emerges that actually he said, I do take drugs, I'm very keen on cannabis and mushrooms, which apparently he is, then why was he allowed to live there in the first place? It's supposed to be the land of equality. Why was this British aristocrat given special treatment? The Americans don't like this. There is serious word that he's coming back to Britain just before he gets kicked out of America. Again, that's our loss. America's gain.
Fascinating stuff, and I think it's clear as daylight. You know, the two of them are skinned. Everything's gone belly up in the USA, from all of the podcasts to the TV shows and stuff. They're back here. They need cash, and I'm just wondering what's going through the mind of William and Kate at the moment. They must be spitting feathers.
Look, the king has got to get this on board. The rest of the royal family are incandescent with rage about this, particularly William and Catherine, who both Meghan and Harry were so unconscionably rude about, who insulted in her book Spare, in that interview with Oprah Winfrey and various other media utterings. They were very, very insulting to the Prince and Princess of Wales. They were pretty insulting to the whole royal family. They basically said we're a bunch of racists. So the royal family don't want them back, apart from Charles. And the British people, who they also labelled us in their documentary series, Harry and Meghan. Essentially, they labelled every single person in this country a racist slave driver. So we don't want them back either. They're back due to desperation because their 6 sorry years in America were one long story of abject failure. They failed at everything they did, everything they touched turned to mud, and now they're coming back with their tails between their legs, begging daddy for money. What a pathetic spectacle they are.
Do you think he's got any understanding, Harry, of the damage he's done, or is he just too thick to comprehend it?
He's too thick to comprehend it. He's just stupid. I mean, he has got the brains of a gnat. She's not much cleverer either. People say she's the clever one. No. She's the slightly less stupid one. They're both severely, profoundly untalented. That's why everything they've done has gone wrong. And they're coming back to Britain because Britain will probably always be able to chuck some money their way, or maybe Daddy will. But I'll tell you one thing, Duncan. There is a storm brewing. If the government, if the authorities bow to pressure from Harry and Meghan, and we, the British taxpayers, are expected to fund their armed police security, £5 million a year, there is going to be hell to pay. The British people will not put up with this. We will not pay that bill because it is a privilege reserved only for the King and the Queen, Queen Camilla, and also the Prince and Princess of Wales. Princess Anne and Prince Edward and Sophie Wessex, who work their socks off. Princess Anne does something ludicrous, like about 700 royal engagements a year, 2 a day. They don't get 24/7 armed police protection. So why should this couple, swanning back from turning their back on this country in California, who don't do a moment's work for this country, who've performed no royal duties, why on earth should British taxpayers pay for their security? We will not. We just will not do that.
I wonder what she's going to do for money, Meghan. I mean, we had this rumour, didn't we, that's since been discounted, that she was going to appear in the Guy Ritchie stuff, The Gentleman. That looks like that's not happening. I mean, are we going to see her pop up on The Traitors or behind the bar at The Rover's Return? I mean, what's going to happen to her?
A lot of people saying that the Traitors would really suit her. Look, this gentleman business, The Gentleman, Guy Ritchie, think about this. We were actually being asked to believe that the Sussexes would uproot their children, uproot themselves, abandon, they say they're not going to sell it, but basically abandon their $15 million mansion in Montecito and come all the way back to Britain so that Meghan could earn about 200,000 quid starring in Series 3 of a so-so Netflix television series. Was never going to be the reason. Whether or not she's got a part in that drama, I suspect she hasn't, but whether or not she has got a part, that isn't the reason they're coming back. I mean, it may well be. My suspicion is there's something out there that none of us know yet. Something has happened that has caused them to come back with indecent haste. I mean, they really have rushed back, haven't they? But on the face of it, my feeling is sheer financial desperation. They're on the point of bankruptcy, and they're hoping the Bank of Daddy can help them out. And also, I do think that Harry's visa problems are about to come to a head. So in the manner of what he likes to do whenever he's in trouble, he's running away. He's running away from America, just like he ran away from Britain 6 years ago. We don't want them back, but I suppose we're lumbered with them.
Kevin, always a pleasure. Thank you. Talk presenter Kevin O'Sullivan, who, of course, is back here on Talk at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Let's quickly, Benedict Spence, take a final call, or possibly two, regarding the triple lock on pensions.
What a shame. I was going to talk about the Duchess of Sussex being in a Guy Ritchie film.
We want to find out what people think about your suggestion that the triple lock should be scrapped. Hello, Chris in Dorset.
Hi,
Go on. What would you like to say?
Hi, I'm a first-time caller. I love this programme. I love the show. And Benedict talks so much sense so much of the time, but I just think he missed a bit from what he was talking about just now.
Go on.
What I'm trying to say is that if you've paid into this all of your life, it's an entitlement that you've got. If the government wastes the money that you've paid in and decide to pay immigrants billions and millions of pounds, and France millions and billions of pounds of our money that's meant to be, then all of a sudden you're saying, oh no, we'll just hook it back off the pensioners. I just think that's grossly unfair. If the country was on a level keel and we were getting somewhere close, I would totally understand to say we really need to look at what we're paying our own people.
but I think he's missed that point.
All right, very briefly, Benedict, respond to that for me.
I think everybody would like to live in a civilization, in a society where everything was done properly. And yeah, I take the point that there are many other aspects of government waste that should be addressed, but that doesn't mean that you should keep on allowing other forms of government waste just because you feel that you're entitled to it. I'm sorry.
Chris in Dorset, great call, thank you. And they're going to move it on so we can squeeze in Suzanne in Leicestershire. Hello, Suze.
Hello, thank you for taking the call. It was really to repeat what the gentleman has previously just said. I think the amount of waste that is spent in this country, the health service, everything, and I've got experience of that. But more importantly, pensioners have a fixed income and they have to live to it. And one of the remarks that gentleman made was to a previous caller where he said, oh, well, I have a pension that is linked and I have to take the high with the low. And his answer back was, oh, well, usually you find that in sort of a year to 18 months, they go back up and this, that and the other. A lot of people haven't got 18 months. A lot of people are staying at home. A lot of people are using more heating when they're pensioners. There's all sorts of considerations that need to be taken. And I really, really think this morning he's just labelled himself as arrogant, flippant, and he needs to do a bit more data searching.
All right, let me ask you to pause, Suzanne, because briefly I'm going to let Benedict respond.
During major economic downturns, one thing that happens quite frequently, actually, is the number of suicides that go up. Is that amongst pensioners or working people?
Look, don't get...
there we go. No, it's working people. It's working people who lose their houses, they lose their income, they've got families to support. It's those people that end up killing themselves. Everybody suffers during an economic downturn.
Right.
What I actually said was there should be a moratorium during an economic downturn where maybe pensioners don't have to pay enough. Don't have to pay as much. That's actually what I said. But, it's interesting that you took it at that angle.
All right, Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, thank you for enduring the last 3 hours. You fought your corner well.
And I'll be back.
Suzanne in Leicestershire, thank you for your call. Sorry it was brief, but I was keen to get you on. Ian Collins is here after 1.
Yes.
Well, you're another presenter. I've just had Kev on. I expected you'd have the bunting out, your union
I'm meant to be
flag.
here. Kev's not.
No, I'm talking about your, waving your flag, your union flag hat, because Harry and Meghan are back.
Why did they go to Birmingham Airport?
Well, because there's less paparazzi there, I suspect.
Well, yeah, but there wouldn't be, would they? If they would have known that they were going there.
Because there's only a 20-mile-an-hour limit in Birmingham, so they can wave and everybody can see them.
That's what it is. They've got to take it slowly.
Yeah.
It's the Triple Lock special after 1 o'clock.
Is it?
Looking forward to that. Benedict's going to be with us for another 3 hours.
Look after
Taking
him.
a right old pounding.
He's a bit bruised.
Taking a right old pounding. You made a really good point, though.